Chapter 344. Mom, it's my own money. When I was in Japan, I saved up a large sum of money. It's enough to support the two of you. Besides, I also have 10% of the shares of Xinghao Group. Every year, the dividends are tens of millions. Xinghao Group. Isn't that Ahan's company? Xia Ling was surprised. Xia Dong nodded. When we got married, Ahan transferred 10% of the shares of the company to me. She wasn't going to tell her mother that Ahan's original words at the time were to give the money to her as pocket money, tens of millions of pocket money. Of course, he also gave her a few extra credit cards for her to use as she pleased. Xia Ling was flabbergasted. Clearly, this matter had exceeded her understanding. So, you don't have to worry about money, just move to the city. Xia Dong said with a smile. Mom, I will take it that you agree. You must try to persuade Uncle Fu. Xia Ling came back to herself and felt that Bailey Han was a very reliable son-in-law. If a man was willing to give his wife the financial power, it meant that he was not selfish and truly loved this woman. Especially in those rich families, there were some women who married into rich families but their husbands were not willing to transfer their assets to them. Since Xiushui village was far away from the city, Xia Ling had already prepared dinner and asked them to go home after dinner. The two cars drove away and Xia Ling and her husband stood at the entrance of the village, waving their hands. It was not until they could no longer be seen that Xia Dong turned around reluctantly. Bailey Han smiled and said gently, Have you mentioned to mother-in-law about moving? Yes, I have. Mom agreed. When Dad agrees, we will help them move immediately. Xia Dong could not wait one more day. She really wanted to live closer to them. Bailey Han smiled lovingly. Okay, we will go to your apartment tomorrow and ask the furniture company to send you any furniture you need. Honey, you are so nice. Xia Dong's eyes sparkled. She lowered her voice to avoid the 3 pairs of ears in the back seat. Bailey Han pointed at his cheek and cooperated with her by lowering his voice. A reward. Xia Dong whispered, Focus on driving. I'll give it to you when we get home. He chuckled softly. You said it yourself. I want the same reward as last night. Her face heated up. Xiao Bao suddenly coughed loudly with a strange expression on his face. Little Wingzi also coughed and winked at him. Xiao Guai giggled. Daddy, Mommy, we heard it. Xia Dong was embarrassed, but she also found it funny and couldn't help but laugh. Bailey Han sighed helplessly. The 3 of you need to learn how to play dumb. The 3 of them shouted in unison, Next time, we'll definitely play dumb. That's good. Bailey Han was pleased with their strong learning ability. Xia Dong bit her lip and laughed even louder. The next day, the couple drove to Xia Dong's small apartment with the 3 little kids. They took inventory of the furniture in the house and made a list of furniture that needed to be added. They also packed the things that the children needed into 2 boxes and stuffed them into the car. In the end, Bailey Han personally drew a simple renovation sketch. He planned to renovate the house and change it into an environment suitable for the elderly. After he finished drawing, he said, I'll get Lu Zihao to contact a trustworthy renovation company to complete the renovation as soon as possible. The children were playing in the living room. Xia Dong took the opportunity to kiss him on the cheek as a reward. She smiled and teased, Honey, I didn't expect you to have such skills. This is nothing. This is my villa. I drew all the decorations and sketches myself. Bailey Han bit her lips and raised his eyebrows proudly with an expression that said, Hurry up and praise me. Xia Dong recalled the first time she moved into his villa 5 years ago. When she saw the black marble living room and the love-struck guest room, she felt emotional. She chuckled and rubbed his cheek. The villa's overall style is low-key, but it's interesting. It's really your taste. Honey, you're amazing. Come, give me another kiss. He shamelessly moved closer to her. She quickly jumped away and ran to the door. She made a face at him. It's broad daylight. Aren't you embarrassed? Bailey Han raised his eyebrows slightly and smirked. He said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Who was the one crying and begging me to do embarrassing things last night?" Xia Dong's face suddenly turned red. She lowered her voice and bared her teeth. "I told you to stop." His smile widened. He stretched out his arm and gestured elegantly with his finger. "Honey, come here, only a fool would go over." Xia Dong glared at him angrily. Looking at his smirk, he definitely didn't have good intentions. She didn't want to walk right into his trap. She turned and ran. But she was still a step too late. A pair of slender arms passed through her waist and pulled her into a broad chest at lightning speed. With a bang sound, the door was kicked shut by him. He held her in his arms, his slender fingers caressing her lips that she was biting slightly due to her nervousness. His face was extremely close to hers, and his warm breath blew on her cheek. He chuckled softly. "Wifey, what should we do? It seems like I can't resist your charm anymore." His gentle words of love made her face even redder. Coupled with the caressing of his fingers on her face, her entire body went limp. Leaning on his chest, she pouted coquettishly while breathing unsteadily. "Stop fooling around. The children are still outside." He hugged her tightly and said in a low voice, "I know. I just want to satisfy my craving." He lowered his head and kissed her lips gently. After their breathing stabilized, the first thing Xia Dong did was look for a mirror. In the mirror, her lips were red and slightly swollen. It was easy to think of something and she couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. He accepted it and walked out of the room with his arm around her slender waist. Actually, Xia Dong felt guilty and thought too much. The children had long thought that it was normal for daddy and mommy to kiss each other. It was their fault for being so mushy. That day, Xia Ling called and said that Fu Qinghai had agreed to move to the city. Xia Dong was very happy. She discussed with Xia Ling and decided to postpone the move to the end of the month because the house had to be renovated. Bailey Han quickly contacted the renovation company. The renovation this time was very simple. It mainly focused on the placement of the interior furniture and the overall comfort level. No paint, or other materials were used because those things would emit substances that were harmful to the human body. It needed to be empty for a period of time before people could move in. That would delay the moving in. 2 days later, Xia Dong bought 2 sets of clothes and some supplements for her parents to visit them. This time, Bailey Han was at work and the children had to go to school. She was the only one there. She wanted to give the 2 elders a surprise, so she didn't tell them in advance. When she walked to the door of the courtyard, she realized that it wasn't locked. Just as she was about to push the door open, she suddenly heard an argument from inside. "Ah Wei, stop it right now. That passbook contains your mother's and my coffin money, stupid old man, let go. If I don't return the money to them, they will chop off my hands. Do you understand? Ah Wei, why did you gamble again? Why are you so disobedient? Get out of my way, stupid old woman." Ah, there was the sound of someone falling to the ground. Xia Dong couldn't hold it in anymore. She was furious. Bang! She kicked the door open and barged in with a livid face. When she saw the scene in front of her, Xia Dong was furious. Her mother was lying on the ground and her father hurriedly went to help her up. Her half-brother, Fu Wei, only cared about the passbook in his hand and didn't care about the lives of the 2 elders. "Mom, how are you? Are you okay?" Xia Dong quickly ran over and put down the things in her hand to help Fu Qinghai help Xia Ling up. Xia Ling was full of bitterness. She turned her head away and wiped her tears. She kept shaking her head. I'm fine. Fu Wei put the passbook in his pants pocket and looked at Xia Dong up and down. "Who are you? You're quite pretty." Xia Dong stood up, her eyes burning with anger. She quickly walked in front of him and raised her hand to slap his roguish face. She gritted her teeth and said, "Open your eyes and take a good look. I'm your sister, Xia Dong." Fu Wei was caught off guard by her slap and was stunned. He quickly reacted and raised his hand angrily to hit back. "Stop!" Fu Qinghai roared. "You bastard, if you really dare to hit her, don't ever come back to this house again." Fu Wei didn't take his father's words seriously. Instead, he was furious and didn't hesitate to slap him. He shouted, "Old man, I'm your biological son. Why are you helping this bastard?" You. Fu Qinghai was so angry that he almost fainted. Xia Ling was even angrier and sadder. She limped towards her son and daughter. "You bastard, stop it right now." But after all, distant water couldn't quench a present thirst. Seeing that Fu Wei's heavy slap was about to land on Xia Dong's face, Xia Ling became even more anxious and staggered over. Fu Qinghai also came over to stop her, but Xia Dong suddenly grabbed Fu Wei's wrist tightly. At first, Fu Wei didn't take her seriously and reached out to hit her with his other hand. In the end, she also grabbed his wrist. His face gradually turned from red to white. "Ouch, ouch, ouch. Hurry and let go, damn it, this woman looks so thin and weak. How is she so strong?" Xia Dong stared at him coldly. "Apologize to mom and dad." Fu Wei's forehead was covered in cold sweat from the pain. He hurriedly said, "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong." Fu Qinghai and Xia Ling were stunned. They didn't expect their daughter to be so powerful. Now can you let go of me, sister?" Fu Wei's wrist hurt so much that he squeezed out an ugly smile. Welfare, Hengcha 866. Chapter 345. Xia Dong sneered. "Now you're calling me sister. Didn't you just call me a bastard? Didn't you say it so smoothly?" "I'm sorry, sister. I was wrong. Please let me go. I'm your brother," Fu Wei said pitifully. Xia Dong looked at her half-brother carefully. He was only 16 years old and had a hint of childishness between his eyebrows. He was quite handsome, but he had a lot of bad habits that needed to be cured. Otherwise, his life would be over. She grabbed his wrists tightly and had no intention of letting go. She stared at him with her sharp eyes and said in a low voice, "How did you owe money? How much do you owe?" Fu Wei's hands were grabbed and were in so much pain that he didn't have the ability to think anymore. He told her all the mistakes he had made. I gambled with someone and lost 100,000. 100,000? This amount of money was not a small sum for the poor Fu Qinghai and his wife. The two of them supported each other and almost fainted. Xia Dong was furious. This brother of hers was really useless. Of all things to learn, he had to learn gambling. She suddenly lifted her leg and kicked his knee. His legs went soft and he fell to his knees with a thud. She pulled his wrist hard and he grimaced in pain. "Ouch, ouch, ouch. Sis, please spare me," Xia Dong said angrily. "Kneel in front of Dad and Mom now and reflect." Yes. "Dad, Mom, I was wrong. Hurry up and ask sister to let go of me. I'm going to die from the pain." Fu Wei started to cry. His eyes were filled with tears and his face was twisted in pain. He looked extremely pathetic. Xia Ling saw her son in such a pitiful state and couldn't bear it. Just as she was about to say something, Fu Qinghai suddenly grabbed her wrist and shouted, "You bastard, your sister is right. You have to reflect today." Xia Ling was shocked and her mind instantly cleared up. She suppressed the pity in her heart. Her son was stubborn and no one could control him. Now that Xia could control him, it was a good thing. She hoped that she could pull him back from the wrong path. Xia Dong flung Fu Wei's wrist away. She didn't care about his crying face and strode to her parents. She brought 2 chairs for them to sit down and whispered in Fu Qinghai's ear, "Dad, if you don't mind, let me handle this." Fu Qinghai couldn't wait for Xia Dong to tame his son. He nodded and deliberately said in a loud voice, Xia, I'll leave that bastard to you. Teach him a lesson. Don't worry about us. Fu Wei, he cried. Dad, Mom, Sis, I know I was wrong, but... Sister. Xia Dong said coldly, Wei, how long have you been working? Fu Wei was stunned. He didn't expect her to suddenly ask such an irrelevant question. Xia Dong said sternly, I'm asking you, how long have you been working? 2 years. How much savings do you have now? No. Xia Dong's tone turned cold. You don't have a single cent? Fu Wei shrunk his neck and shivered. Yes. He dropped out of school at the age of 14. After that, he ran to the city to work. Regular factories didn't dare to take in child laborers. He finally found a job as a waiter in a small restaurant. However, because the salary was too low and the work was too hard, he ran away after a month. After that, he mingled with a group of hooligans. He collected protection money, fought with people, and did a lot of petty theft. However, because he squandered money whenever he was rich, he didn't save a single cent. Instead, he often asked his parents for money. Especially after he became addicted to gambling, his behavior became worse. If his parents didn't give him any money, he would openly rob them. Worse, he would even use his fists and legs. Xia Dong slammed the coffee table and said angrily, Fu Wei, you're already 16 years old. You're an adult. You don't do a proper job all day. You only know how to ask your parents for money. Don't you have any sense of shame? Fu Wei suddenly raised his head and stiffened his neck. It's their fault that I'm like this today. Good, very good. I only thought that you were young and ignorant. I didn't expect you to add another one. You're an incompetent idiot who only knows how to push the blame to others. Xia Dong was so angry that her whole body trembled. She pointed at his nose and said, Did your parents force you to drop out of school? Did they force you to fool around with those bastards? Did they force you to gamble and squander money? They are indeed wrong. Their mistake is that they love you too much, spoil you too much, and spoil you too much. Fu Wei's face alternated between red and white. His eyes shot out a venomous light. He gritted his teeth and said, Let me tell you, don't think that you can control me just because I call you sister. You have no right to control me. Xia Dong snorted coldly. Since you call me sister, I have the right to discipline you on behalf of your parents. Fu Wei, listen carefully. Don't even think about taking a single cent from your parents. If you have the ability, earn your own money and return it to those people. Fu Wei's face suddenly changed. He lay on the ground and cried bitterly. Dad, Mom, Sister, you have to save me. The people in the casino are used to being vicious. They will really chop off my hands. As long as you're willing to help me this time, I will turn over a new leaf and become a new person. Xia Dong had to admit that this kid's face changed as quickly as flipping through a book. It would be a great loss to the film industry if he didn't go into acting. She knew that he had been on the wrong path for a long time. Even if she talked until her mouth was dry, he wouldn't be able to change in such a short time. She had to come up with a plan to change his bad habits. She frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. Her tone softened slightly as she said slowly, Ah Wei, go talk to the people in the casino and ask them to give you 3 months. Impossible, they won't even give me 3 days. Fu Wei saw that her tone had relaxed. He crawled to her on his knees and said, Sister, I beg you, please help me. I know you have money. Xia Dong looked at the fawning expression on his face and felt uncomfortable all over. He glared at him and said, Stand up and speak properly. Ah, okay. Thank you, sister. Fu Wei stood up quickly and patted the dust off his knees. He chuckled and said, Sister, can you lend me 100,000 yuan? Xia Dong rejected him immediately. Impossible. You have to earn this money yourself. However, I can introduce you to a job. Your salary will be calculated according to your performance. I guarantee that you can earn 100,000 yuan in 3 months. Sister, they won't even wait for me for 3 months, Xia Dong glanced at him. Aren't you very talkative? Talk to them. If they really cut off your hands, you won't be able to give them a single cent. On the contrary, if they are willing to give you 3 months, not only will you return them 100,000 yuan, you will also give them an extra 10,000 yuan interest. Why wouldn't they agree to such a good thing? Fu Wei was stunned. An extra 10,000 yuan. Where will the money come from? Earn it yourself. I've already said that your salary will be linked to your efforts. The harder you work, the higher your salary. Fu Wei was very reluctant. Don't tell me it's construction work. It's hard and tiring. I don't want to do it. Xia Dong sneered. Look at how weak you are. Can you do it if I ask you to work at a construction site? What kind of work is that? Let's make it clear first. I won't do any work that requires physical strength. Fu Wei had long been trained to be tough. He didn't even blush when he said this. Xia Dong glanced at him and spat out 2 words. Sales. What? Sales? I always have to smile and please others. I won't do it. Xia Dong said lightly, you have no education, no strength, and no skills. If you don't want to do anything, how are you going to make money? Sales is already the easiest job. If it weren't for the fact that you are my brother, I wouldn't even introduce such a good job to you. Fu Wei muttered unhappily, then don't introduce the job to me. Just give me the money. Xia Dong's expression changed. Fu Wei, don't make me angry. If you don't learn how to earn your own living, don't even think about getting a single cent from me and Mom. Okay. I'll do it. Fu Wei was worried that he had angered this god of wealth and really didn't care about him anymore. He said helplessly, tell me, where do you work in sales? Xia Dong gave him an address and said, wait for me at this cafe tomorrow at 1:00 in the afternoon. I'll arrange a job for you then. Also, you have to appease the people in the casino. It's best if you sign an agreement with them that they are not allowed to disturb you or your family for 3 months. When the time is up, you will naturally return the money to them. Understand? Fu Wei nodded carelessly. Yes, I understand. Xia Dong was angry when she saw his attitude. However, Rome wasn't built in a day. She couldn't rush it. She had to train him slowly. Seeing that he couldn't get his parents' money, Fu Wei didn't want to stay at home any longer. He shrugged and said, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Fu Qinghai scolded, it's not easy for your sister to come back. Let's have a good meal together. Fu Wei rolled his eyes and laughed. Sister, it's not that I don't want to eat with you. It's just that I want to talk to the people in the casino early and appease them. Xia Dong could tell that he didn't want to stay at home. She thought for a while and said, okay, go ahead. If you want to sign an agreement, look carefully. Don't be fooled. I know. Goodbye, sister. Goodbye, Dad and Mom. He waved his hand and ran away quickly. Fu Qinghai and his wife sighed deeply as they watched his back disappear into the distance. Xia Dong said, Dad, Mom, I went past you to teach Wei a lesson. I hope you don't mind. Fu Qinghai hurriedly said, Xia, don't say that. I'm more than happy that you can control Wei. There's finally someone who can control him. As long as you can pull him back from the wrong path, you can teach him a lesson however you want. Add Xinwu 799. Chapter 346. Xia Dong smiled and said, Dad, Mom, this is what I'm thinking. Let's let Wei earn his own living and let him realize his shortcomings at work. Then, we'll think of a way to persuade him to go back to school. He's still too young, so it's better for him to study for a few more years. Fu Qinghai nodded repeatedly. We'll listen to you, Xia. Fortunately, you're here. Otherwise, your mom and I wouldn't know what to do. Yes, Xia Xia. Mom is also very grateful to you. Xia Ling couldn't help but wipe her tears as she spoke. Xia Dong sat beside her and hugged her shoulders. She said gently, Mom, don't worry. Ah Wei is my younger brother. I'll definitely think of a way to change his bad habits. Mom, don't be sad, okay? Xia Ling looked at her sensible daughter and was very gratified. She patted the back of her hand hard. Fu Qinghai thought for a moment and said, Xia Xia, you said that you'll arrange a job for Ah Wei. Will this work? Xia Dong smiled. No problem, Dad. Don't worry. When they went to bed that night, Xia Dong told Bai Li Han about her battle with Fu Wei. In the end, she sighed. Ah Wei is so young. I didn't expect him to become like this. It looks like it'll take a lot of effort to change him. Bai Li Han hugged her in his arms and said, Don't worry. I'm still here. I'll show him how powerful I am as his brother-in-law. Xia Dong's lips curled into a smile. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. You're the famous young master of the Dragon Gang. He stroked her hair and smiled. You said that you'll arrange a job for Ah Wei. Don't tell me you want him to enter my company. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. Why? You're not willing. He chuckled softly. Of course not. I'm just worried that if he enters my company, he'll use my name to throw his weight around. Xia Dong frowned. That's right. With his personality, he would really do something like that. Bai Li Han reached out to rub the creases between her eyebrows and said gently, Don't worry, I have a way. I have a friend who opened a software development company. They've developed a new hotel management program, and the employees in the marketing department will get a 10% commission if they sell a set of software. As long as Ah Wei is willing to work hard, it won't be hard for him to earn 30,000 a month. She didn't expect that he had already thought of a countermeasure while listening to her story. Xia Dong was extremely touched. She hugged him tightly and rubbed her head against his chest. Hubby, you're the best. My wife's business is also my business. Of course, your husband will go through fire and water without hesitation. Bai Li Han was lying flat on his back. He took the opportunity to lift her up and let her lie on top of him. Their bodies fit together without any gap. Xia Dong leaned her head against his chest and listened to his steady heartbeat. She said softly, Hubby, do you think Ah Wei can last for 3 months? His left hand rested on her waist and his right hand stroked her back. His eyes were filled with tenderness. I don't know either. I hope he can hold on. If he can't, we'll think of a way to make him hold on. She nodded and said helplessly, Ah Wei's matter has made me reflect on myself. I shouldn't spoil the children too much, lest I spoil them. It looks like I'll have to be stricter in the future. Bai Li Han chuckled softly. A loving mother and a strict father. You play the good cop, and I play the bad cop. I promise I won't let them go astray. Okay. She looked up and smiled as she kissed his chin. Honey, the conversation is over. It's time for us to exercise. The corners of his lips curled up. He hugged her and turned around, pressing her under his body. He lowered his head and kissed her lips gently. She reached out her arm and hooked it around his neck as she responded passionately. He bit her lips and whispered, Honey, why are you so passionate tonight? She laughed softly. You don't like it? Then I won't be passionate. His kiss became more intense as he blocked her words with his tongue. He used his actions to tell her that he loved her passion to death. At the cafe. Xia Dong looked at the watch on her wrist. Her right hand stirred her coffee occasionally as her gaze fell on the passers-by outside the window. Half an hour had passed since the agreed time, but Fu Wei still hadn't arrived. Xia Dong didn't want to waste any more time, so she dialed his number and said mildly, Ah Wei, where are you? I've been waiting for you for half an hour. Sorry, sis. There was a traffic jam. I'm in the car. I'll be there soon. Xia Dong's tone didn't fluctuate. How much longer? About 10 minutes. After waiting for another 10 minutes, Fu Wei still hadn't arrived. Xia Dong's heart was already burning with anger. She thought that when he arrived later, she would definitely give him a good scolding. After another 5 minutes, Fu Wei ran in, sweating profusely. He sat down opposite her and said while panting, "Sorry, sis. I'm late." Xia Dong had already prepared some words to scold him, but seeing him in such a sorry state, he swallowed them back down. Instead, he pulled out a few napkins and handed them to him. "Wipe yourself." "Thank you, sis." Fu Wei took the napkins and wiped his face a few times. He grinned at her. "Sis, I've already talked to the people at the casino. They'll give me 3 months. Xia Dong was still worried and asked, "Did they make things difficult for you? What were the terms that you agreed on?" Fu Wei raised his chin proudly. "No. According to what we discussed yesterday, I'll give them an extra 10,000 yuan and they'll give me another 3 months. Are there really no other terms? There's really nothing else." Xia Dong was relieved after Fu Wei repeatedly assured her. She took out a business card from her handbag and pushed it in front of him. "This is a software development company. Your brother-in-law has already talked to the manager of the sales department. You can go to work tomorrow, but you have to remember not to expose your relationship with your brother-in-law. More importantly, you can't use your brother-in-law's name to do bad things. Do you understand?" "Understood." Fu Wei took the business card. On it was written, High and High Technology Company, Limited, Sales Manager Deng Yuexiang. Xia Dong said, "You'll report directly to the sales manager tomorrow. Do you have any formal clothes?" Fu Wei was wearing a flowery shirt and ripped jeans. He had a head of yellow hair that looked like a chicken's nest and a few earrings in his ears. He looked like a delinquent at first glance. He scratched his head. "No." Xia Dong took out a bill from her wallet and placed it on the table. "Let's go. I'll take you to buy clothes." Fu Wei's smile reached his ears. He grinned and said, "Okay. Thank you, sis." Xia Dong took him to the department store. His face fell and he muttered unhappily, "Buy clothes here? I thought we were going to a high-end clothing store." Xia Dong rolled her eyes at him. "Don't forget that you're just an ordinary employee. Is it appropriate for you to wear an expensive suit to the office?" Okay. You're right. Who asked you to be the one paying?" Xia Dong couldn't be bothered with him. She asked the waiter to bring a few suits of better quality and stuffed them into his arms. "Go in and try them on." "Okay." Fu Wei dragged his voice lazily and carried the clothes into the fitting room. Clothes make the man. Fu Wei, who looked like a ruffian, walked out in a suit. He was 1.7 meters tall and looked handsome in the suit. Of course, one had to ignore his messy yellow hair. "Not bad. I'll take these 3. Xia Dong chose 3 suits and 3 shirts. She asked the waiter to pack them up. After swiping her card, she took him to the leather shoe store next door and bought 2 pairs of leather shoes for him. Then, she bought a tie, a belt, and a briefcase. There were a few bags of them. Xia Dong walked in front energetically. Fu Wei followed behind her with the big and small bags. Sis, slow down. I can't keep up." Xia Dong turned around and threw him a disdainful look. "You can't even twist this little thing. You call yourself a man? How embarrassing." Fu Wei said unhappily, "These things are quite heavy. Try twisting them if you don't believe me." Xia Dong glanced at him and said indifferently, "The strawberries that Dad and Mom packed were much heavier than these things. Have you ever heard them say, heavy, in the past 10 years? Fu Wei opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. A faint pink color appeared on his handsome face. Xia Dong stopped before going too far. She turned around and said, "Hurry up and keep up. We still have a lot of things to do." Fu Wei was stunned. He quickly chased after her. "I'm coming, sis. Wait for me." The two of them walked out of the department store one after the other and brushed past Xia Jinsheng. Xia Dong looked straight ahead and didn't notice Xia Jinsheng. Xia Jinsheng did notice them, but he was too embarrassed to call out to Xia Dong. At the same time, he was puzzled. Why did the young man behind her call her sis? Xia Dong stopped the BMW outside a hair salon. She looked sideways at Fu Wei. "Get out of the car." Fu Wei followed Xia Dong into the hair salon. An attendant immediately came up to them. "How may I help you?" Xia Dong looked at Fu Wei and said, "Miss, please design a hairstyle for him and dye his hair black." Fu Wei said anxiously, "Wait, sis. I don't want to dye it black." Xia Dong raised her hand and knocked on his head. "You look like a delinquent now. You have to change your image." "But, no buts." Xia Dong threatened him with her eyes. He finally shut up and pouted. The attendant smiled. "Do you have a familiar hairstylist?" Xia Dong said, "No." "Arrange for your head hairstylist." "Okay, this way please." Xia Dong sat in the waiting room, flipping through the magazine in her hand. 2 hours later, Fu Wei's hairstyle was finally done. When he appeared in front of her, she almost couldn't believe her eyes. Ad, Xinwu 799. Chapter 347. Fu Wei was now wearing a white shirt and black trousers. His refreshing black hair was suffused with a rich luster, and his irregularly cut bangs were slanted to one side. It was very well groomed, making his handsome face look even more delicate and handsome, and also very capable and experienced. Xia Dong smiled with satisfaction. She walked in front of him and reached out her hand to his ear. He quickly covered his ear. "Sis, my dear sister, I'm only left with this personality thing. Leave it for me. Don't even think about it." Xia Dong pried his fingers away, took off the earring on his ear and threw it into the trash can. Fu Wei looked sad and stared at the trash can. "All right, look at you." Xia Dong pushed his shoulder. "Look at yourself in the mirror." Fu Wei turned around and looked at himself in the mirror. He was in a suit and had a handsome hairstyle. However, the expression on his face and his body movements were too ugly. He looked like a hooligan who wore the wrong clothes. "Raise your head, chest, stomach, and butt." Xia Dong used a magazine to pat the corresponding parts of his body. She said in a serious voice, "Put away that wretched expression of yours. From today onwards, you're a white-collar worker." White-collar? This word was very distant and unfamiliar to Fu Wei. He didn't know why, but when he looked at himself in the mirror, he suddenly had a strange feeling. He subconsciously followed Xia Dong's action of patting him with the magazine and raised his head. He gradually restrained the expression on his face and imitated the white-collar workers on the street. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. The image in the mirror immediately changed. Although his face still had a childish look, he was handsome, tall, and cultured. Very good. Xia Dong didn't hide her admiration for him and patted his shoulder. That's how it should be. Ah Wei, congratulations on taking the first step. Remember, a person's image is very important because the first impression others have of you starts from your clothes and appearance. Clothes not only leave a sense of beauty, but also reflect your personal temperament, character, and inner world. Appropriate speech and generous behavior are the second step. Come, I'll take you to a place. Fu Wei had a magical feeling as if he had stepped into another world. This was the first time he felt that when he put on clothes, his words and actions would involuntarily lean towards that kind of image. Xia Dong brought him to an etiquette training center. The instructor was called Belinda. When Xia Dong was the editor-in-chief of Glamour magazine, she had done an exclusive interview with Belinda, so the two of them had a private relationship. Belinda was a tall and charming lady with a head of beautiful brown curly hair. She enthusiastically stretched out her arms and hugged Xia Dong, exclaiming happily, "Wow, Xia Dong, what brings you here?" Xia Dong smiled. "Belinda, your career is getting better and better. Congratulations." Belinda shrugged and teased, "How can they compare to you? Your husband is handsome and rich, and your children are cute and obedient. You're the envy of all women." "You're just teasing me." Xia Dong hurriedly pulled Fu Wei over and said, "Belinda, this is my brother, Fu Wei. He just stepped into society. Please teach him some basic etiquette." "Sure, no problem. You know that my classes last a week. Does your brother have time?" "Yes." Xia Dong turned to Fu Wei. "Wei, talk to Belinda first." Belinda stretched out her right hand and smiled. "Hello, Fu Wei. I'm the etiquette teacher, Belinda." Fu Wei awkwardly stretched out his right hand and shook hers. He murmured, "Hello, teacher." Belinda's smile widened and she said affectionately, "Just call me Belinda." "I'll call you Wei." Fu Wei's fair face was tinged with a blush. Belinda's etiquette class started at 7 p.m. every day and lasted for an hour and a half for 7 days. Xia Dong repeatedly reminded Fu Wei to go to Belinda's studio for training starting tomorrow after work. After coming out of the studio, the fearless Fu Wei doubted himself for the first time. He leaned against the passenger seat dejectedly. Xia Dong glanced at him. "What's wrong?" Fu Wei mumbled, "I don't know if I can do it well." Xia Dong knocked on his head. "Cheer up. You haven't even started working hard and you're already discouraged. Think about the 100,000 yuan you owe. Do you want them to chop off your hands?" Fu Wei quivered. "Of course not. That's good. Report to the company tomorrow and work hard." Fu Wei pursed his lips. "Got it." Xia Dong looked at her watch. It was actually dinner time. She glanced at the street outside the window and said, "What do you like to eat?" "Let's eat together." Fu Wei chuckled. "Century brocade." Xia Dong rolled her eyes. "You haven't even started earning money and you're already so extravagant." "Western food, stingy." Xia Dong thought for a while and asked, "Ah Wei, do you think your brother-in-law is rich?" At the mention of this, Fu Wei immediately perked up. His eyes shone with a green light. "Of course he's rich. Isn't he number 1 on the rich list of City A? Sis, can I go directly to brother-in-law's company?" Xia Dong said earnestly, "Ah Wei, do you know how your brother-in-law got his achievements and status today?" Fu Wei pursed his lips. "It's because of his father." "Tell me, why don't I have a rich father?" Xia Dong's mouth twitched. She had the urge to throw this kid out of the car window. She coughed and said, "When your brother-in-law founded Shenghao Group, he didn't rely on his family. He relied on his own abilities." Fu Wei's eyes widened. "You're lying." "I don't believe you." "You don't believe me? Then I'll tell you." Xia Dong started to talk about how Bailey Han started to learn martial arts when he was 4 years old. She talked about how he was a good student since he was a child. His family was strict. In order to improve himself, he never played games like other children. When she talked about how Bailey Han was thrown on an isolated island at the age of 16 to train for his coming-of-age ceremony, the car arrived at a Western restaurant. She stopped the car and said, "We're here. Get out of the car. I'll tell you when we eat." In the restaurant, Xia Dong continued the topic from before and said, "When your brother-in-law was 20 years old, he had already obtained a doctorate from Harvard Business School. After returning to China, he refused to inherit his family's company. He pulled in investors himself and founded Shenghao Group." Fu Wei listened with great interest. From time to time, he would show a surprised expression. Finally, he sighed and concluded, although brother-in-law didn't rely on his family to achieve what he has today, his family created a good environment for him. This is also inseparable from his success. In the end, it's better to be born in a rich family. After saying that, he added enviously, if only I was born in a rich family. Xia Dong had the urge to smash the bowl. She clenched her hands tightly and suppressed the impulse. She said in a deep voice, Wei, although your living environment is not as good as your brother-in-law's, your parents have never mistreated you in terms of living and education. It's you who didn't learn well. Even dropping out of school was your own idea. Why don't you know how to reflect on yourself? Fu Wei wanted to refute, but Xia Dong beat him to it. She said, the reason why your brother-in-law is successful is that he is good at learning and improving his ability. There's a saying that knowledge can change one's fate. Don't tell me that you haven't heard of it. Fu Wei's lips moved. He snorted and said angrily, Sis, don't preach to me. It's useless to say so much to me. Xia Dong gritted her teeth and struggled. Finally, she glared at him and pushed her plate in front of him. You eat it all. I've lost my appetite because of you. Okay. Fu Wei didn't feel guilty at all. He smiled and moved the steak from her plate to his. Xia Dong looked at his greasy mouth and couldn't help but shake her head. After dinner, he received a call. It was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He waved at Xia Dong and said, Sis, I'm leaving. I have something to do. Xia Dong grabbed his collar. Where are you going? Although he deliberately lowered his voice when he answered the call, she still heard him say, Wait for me. I'll be right there. Fu Wei's face was bitter. Sis, my friend asked me out to play. Let go of me. No. From today onwards, you have to cut ties with those bad friends of yours. If you hang around with them, you'll never be able to walk the right path. Xia Dong snatched the phone from his hand without giving him a chance to explain. He searched through the call log for the number he had just received and dialed it. Sis, give me back my phone. Fu Wei rushed over to snatch the phone. Xia Dong quickly dodged and nimbly avoided him. Hey, Wei. Didn't I say we were at the rave bar? Why are you calling again? It was extremely noisy on the other end of the line. Xia Dong said coldly, Wei won't be going over. If you have any problems in the future, don't look for him. Hey, who are you? You're so arrogant. I'm his guardian. Don't harass him in the future. After Xia Dong said this, she didn't wait for the other party to reply. She hung up the phone and turned it off. She took out the SIM card from the phone and casually put it in her handbag. Her actions were done smoothly. Fu Wei was stunned for a second before he reacted. He shouted angrily, Xia Dong, who allowed you to do this? Hurry up and give me back my phone and SIM card. Xia Dong suddenly turned her head and stared at him with a sharp gaze. She exuded a cold aura. Under her fierce gaze, Fu Wei actually felt uneasy. He pursed his lips and deliberately raised his chin. He said in a rough voice, What are you looking at? Hurry up and give me back my things. Xia Dong's fingers were trembling. She really wanted to teach this useless bastard of a lesson. However, looking at his childish face, she held back. She approached him step by step. A strong pressure pressed down on him. His legs retreated without leaving a trace. She suddenly grabbed his arm and dragged him out of the Western restaurant under everyone's surprised and curious gazes. She placed him harshly into the BMW. Attention, Xinwu 799. Chapter 348. Xia Dong pursed her lips and started the car expressionlessly. Fu Wei looked at her ashen face and swallowed his saliva. His dark eyes turned slightly and a big smile appeared on his face. He laughed and said, Sister, where are we going now? Xia Dong looked straight ahead and ignored his flattery. She said coldly, Where do you live? Do you want to take me home? No need, sis. I can go back by myself. I've already troubled you enough today, Fu Wei said as he peeked at her expression. Xia Dong pursed her lips and said coldly, "Tell me the address." "Okay," Fu Wei reluctantly said the name of a place. As Xia Dong drove, she called Bailey Han and told him that she had something to do and would be back later. Bailey Han was on the way back to the old mansion. Knowing that she was with Fu Wei, he asked, "Where are you?" "I'll come over and find you." "No need. I'll send Ai Wei home and be back soon." "Okay then. Be careful on the road." "Okay, got it." Xia Dong ended the call. Fu Wei smiled slyly. "Sis, it's brother-in-law, right? Brother-in-law is so good to you." She glanced at him and smiled. Her tone softened. "Ai Wei, from tomorrow onwards, work hard. Mom and Dad are old. Don't make them worry, okay?" Fu Wei was slightly startled. He turned his head away as if he was avoiding something. He looked out of the window at the hurried pedestrians on the street and remained silent. The smile on Xia Dong's face faded. She didn't say anything and drove to the destination in silence. This was an old city district. The streets were narrow, and the houses were low and old. There were many food stalls on the roadside. Many young men with tattoos on their bodies were sitting at the stalls on the roadside, drinking and playing finger-guessing games with their companions. Their shouts and curses were intertwined together. The BMW stopped by the roadside and attracted the attention of many delinquents with dyed hair. Xia Dong didn't seem to notice their strange looks. She calmly got out of the car and locked it. She said to Fu Wei, "Let's go. Lead the way." "Those things," Fu Wei glanced at the trunk. Xia Dong said indifferently, "No hurry." Fu Wei didn't understand what she was up to. He scratched his head and led her into a dark alley. He walked in front and reminded her, "Sis, be careful. The road here isn't easy to walk on." Xia Dong nodded and followed him forward. They stopped in front of a small 3-story building. The building was very old and looked quite old. The two of them climbed up to the 3rd floor. Fu Wei took out the key and opened the door. After he went in, he blocked Xia Dong at the door and chuckled. "Sister, the room is very messy. Why don't you not come in?" Xia Dong's ears were sharp. She could already hear the sounds of a man and a woman coming from inside. Her face instantly turned ugly. She lowered her voice and asked, "What's going on?" Fu Wei scratched his head awkwardly. It's my friend and his girlfriend. They have nowhere to go, so they're at my place." Xia Dong was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She couldn't imagine what he was thinking about when he was at the age where he was curious about women. Her face was cold. She poked his forehead with her finger and gritted her teeth. "Did you play with women?" No, I really didn't." Fu Wei hurriedly shook his head. Afraid that she wouldn't believe him, he even raised his hand and swore. "I swear, I really didn't." Xia Dong's face looked better. She pulled him over and pushed him out of the door. She held the door with her right hand and deliberately slammed the door with a loud bang. Fu Wei hurriedly pulled her back. Sis, what are you doing?" Xia Dong said indifferently, to remind them that someone is coming. She lifted her chin. "You, turn around." He looked pitiful. "Why don't we wait a little longer?" Xia Dong glared at him and said sternly, "Turn around." He hurriedly turned around and heard her footsteps as she walked into the room. It was a standalone bedroom with a bathroom. It was less than 10 square meters. Clothes and pants were strewn all over the floor. The shabby sofa was filled with junk. Most importantly, there were 2 people lying on the double bed, a man and a woman. Both of them were wrapped in blankets. They poked their heads out and stared at Xia Dong. Obviously, they had heard the conversation between Xia Dong and her brother at the door. The man said uncomfortably, "Sis, don't be angry. We'll leave immediately." Xia Dong said indifferently, "You don't have to leave. Wrap yourself in blankets and don't come out." "Ah Wei, come in." Fu Wei hurriedly ran in and stood behind Xia Dong. He winked at the couple on the bed with a gloomy face. Xia Dong said expressionlessly, "Ah Wei, pack up your valuables and come with me." Fu Wei, who was making eye contact with his buddy on the bed, was stunned when he heard this. "Ah. Where are we going with you?" "Moving," Xia Dong said indifferently. She raised her hand and looked at her watch. "I'll give you 5 minutes. Hurry up. I'll wait for you at the door." I'm not moving." Although his little house was not in good condition, it was in a good location. There were places to eat, drink, and play when he went out. "Stop talking nonsense. You don't have the right to say no." Xia Dong stared at him coldly. "You still have 4.5 minutes. Fu Wei was scolded by her in front of his friends. He felt embarrassed and said unhappily, "I don't want you to care." "I'm not moving." Xia Dong nodded. "Okay, then you can stay here. You don't have to go to work tomorrow. Let the people at the casino chop off your hands." After she finished speaking, she walked out without looking at him. Fu Wei hurriedly grabbed her arm and squeezed out a smile. Sis, don't be rash. I'm just joking. Wait for me. I'll be out soon." Xia Dong replied indifferently with an and walked out of the door without looking back. As soon as she left, Fu Wei's face fell. He looked as if the sky had fallen. The buddy who was nestled under the blanket said in a low voice, "Ah Wei, your sister is so fierce. She's like a tigress." Fu Wei put a finger to his lips and shushed him. He lowered his voice and said, "Stop making a fuss. You're King killing me. You didn't even tell me you were coming." Xia Dong's calm voice drifted from outside the door. 4 minutes. Hey. I'll be done soon." Fu Wei threw the buddy on the bed and rushed to the wardrobe. He dug out a handbag and stuffed his clothes into it. He then rushed to the toilet and stuffed all his toiletries into the bag. Before he left, he waved at the couple on the bed. He put his right hand to his ear and gestured for them to call again. Xia Dong drove him to a good hotel near her apartment and paid for a room for 10 days in advance. Xia Dong opened the trunk and helped him carry the shopping bags into the room. She reminded him, "Stay here for a few days. You can move in with Mom and Dad after my apartment is renovated." Fu Wei nodded. "Okay, got it." Xia Dong took out more than 10 bills from her wallet and handed them to him. "This money is enough for you to use for 10 days. Don't spend it recklessly." He took the money with a smile. "Thank you, sis. I'm leaving. Rest early. Don't be late for tomorrow's report." I know. I won't be late." He waved at her cheerfully. "Take care, sis. Be careful on the road." After Xia Dong went downstairs, she was not in a hurry to leave. She sat in the car and waited for more than 10 minutes. From afar, she saw the lights in Fu Wei's room go out. 2 minutes later, he walked out of the hotel casually, wearing a pair of ripped jeans and a black skull-shaped t-shirt. He put his hands in his trouser pockets. She sneered. She knew that he would not be so honest. Fu Wei was happy that he had finally gotten rid of his nagging tigress sister. He whistled and swaggered down the street, planning to meet up with his friends at the bar. Oh right, he had to get a new SIM card. He touched the phone in his trouser pocket that did not have a SIM card. The corners of his lips curled up triumphantly. Suddenly, his vision blurred. A familiar figure stood in front of him, exuding a cold aura. He blinked and waved with a smile. "Hey, sis. Why aren't you home yet?" Xia Dong crossed her arms and sneered. "If I'm home, how would I know that you're just brushing me off?" He scratched his head and chuckled. "Sis, don't misunderstand. I just went out to buy a pack of cigarettes." "Buy cigarettes? Do you need to dress like this to buy cigarettes?" Xia Dong unceremoniously pulled off the earring on his ear and said coldly, "Now, immediately, get back to your room." "Sis, I really want to buy cigarettes, go back." "Fu Wei, don't make me repeat myself." Xia Dong's sharp eyes stared at him with a chilling gaze. "Okay." Fu Wei hung his head and slowly went upstairs. Xia Dong watched his back disappear at the top of the stairs before returning to the car. Bailey Han called. "Honey, why aren't you back yet? Didn't things go well?" Xia Dong put one hand on her forehead and said helplessly, "Ah Wei, it's really." She explained the situation briefly. "I'm worried that he'll go out and fool around again after I left." Bailey Han paused and said, "The Dragon Gang has a branch nearby. I'll send someone to watch Ah Wei." "Okay. Thank you, hubby." Bailey Han said gently, "Don't worry. Come back quickly and drive carefully." "Okay, got it." She smiled and her gloomy mood was swept away. Just as Xia Dong had expected, half an hour after she left, Fu Wei couldn't hold back his restless heart and rushed downstairs. However, before he could step out of the hotel, a cold-faced man in a black suit stopped him and said coldly, "Young Master Fu, please go back." "Who are you? Why are you stopping me?" The man said coldly, "I was sent by young madam to watch you." "Young Master Fu, you can go back to your room." F***ck, what is this? Fu Wei grabbed his hair in frustration and went upstairs helplessly. It seemed that his plan to have fun tonight was ruined. Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 349. The sales manager, Deng Yuexiang, knew that Fu Wei was Bailey Han's brother-in-law, but Bailey Han had already told him not to give Fu Wei any special treatment. He was to be treated as a newcomer in the sales department, and to be trained as he should be. Therefore, when Fu Wei was late on his first day of work, Deng Yuexiang criticized him without hesitation, and then told him what his job was, and then arranged a week of training for him. A week later, Fu Wei, who knew nothing about software and sales, finally grasped some knowledge and was barely able to start work. Deng Yuexiang threw him a brochure of all the hotels in a city, and said, "These are your target customers. Your task is to persuade them to buy our company's hotel management software. For every software sold, you can get a 10% commission." Fu Wei calculated silently in his heart. A software package cost more than 50,000 yuan, and a 10% commission would be more than 5,000 yuan. Every month, as long as he sold 8 software packages, he could easily save enough money to pay off his gambling debts. If he sold a few more software packages every month, he could live a well-off life. Perhaps because of his sales prowess, he could even be promoted, get a raise, become a general manager, become a CEO, marry a beautiful woman, and climb to the pinnacle of life. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Fu Wei's blood was boiling. He hugged the thick stack of documents and began to daydream. However, after only 3 days, he was discouraged and had the idea of retreating. Today, the family moved. His parents moved from Shoshui village to Xia Dong's apartment. After Fu Wei got off work, he also moved from the hotel to the apartment under the surveillance of the bodyguards. Bailey Han ordered a table of dishes in the hotel, especially to celebrate their housewarming. The whole family was very excited, except for Fu Wei, who was not in high spirits, and hung his head gloomily. This was the first official meeting between Bailey Han and Fu Wei. He glanced at Fu Wei, who was drowning his sorrows in alcohol, without batting an eyelid. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. "Ah Wei, you've been working for 10 days. Fu Wei looked up as if he had been injected with chicken blood, and said excitedly, "Brother-in-law, I don't think sales is suitable for me. Can you arrange a job for me? I want something easy and with a high salary." Xia Dong pretended not to hear anything and lowered her head to remove the fish bones for Xiao Guai. She knew that Bailey Han must have a way to subdue Ah Wei. When Fu Qinghai and Xia Ling heard this, their faces turned red. Fu Qinghai scolded, "Ah Wei, don't talk nonsense. You're doing a good job now. Why change jobs? Bailey Han's expression didn't change. He had a gentle smile on his face. Dad, don't worry. Let's hear what Ah Wei has to say first. Ah Wei, why do you think that sales isn't suitable for you? It's still my brother-in-law who understands me. Fu Wei first praised Bailey Han, then said, brother-in-law, I don't know anything about software. When I was introducing it to the client, I was stumped by a few questions. Also, the people in charge of those hotels don't care about the sales staff at all. I went to a few hotels and was chased out. Bailey Han smiled faintly. Have you ever thought about where the problem lies? Fu Wei said nonchalantly, those people are snobs. They look down on the sales staff. Also, those software are too hard to sell. Bailey Han's lips curled up slightly. His tone was calm, but his eyes were stern. The people who are looked down on are not the sales staff, but those who have no confidence and no ability. If you think that software is hard to sell, then do you know how many sets of software the ace of your sales department can sell every month? How many sets? Fu Wei's eyes were stubborn. He was obviously not convinced. Bailey Han stared into his eyes and said meaningfully, on average, 2 sets a day. His monthly sales commission is a few $100,000. His name is Deng Yuexiang. Manager Deng. Fu Wei couldn't believe it. He's already a manager. Does he still need to go out and sell products? Bailey Han smiled. Indeed, he doesn't need to. Your boss originally wanted to promote him to the position of deputy general manager, but he declined and insisted on staying in the sales department because he felt that the sales department was the best place to show off his skills. The sales staff are like the vanguard. Without them, the company's products can't be sold. Who will create profits for the company? Do you still think that the sales staff is not important? His words were neither hurried nor slow. There was no hint of criticism in his tone, but it gently hit Fu Wei's heart. He quietly clenched his fingers. He didn't dare to look at Bailey Han's wise and deep eyes. Xiao Yi suddenly interrupted, little uncle, the richest man in Hong Kong also made his fortune in sales. Xiao Bao added, and the richest man in Las Vegas, Adelson. He started delivering newspapers when he was 12 years old. Xiao Guai blinked her beautiful big eyes and said in a childish voice, little uncle, you will also become the richest man. Xiao Guai's innocent and childish words made everyone laugh. Xiao Guai pouted. Don't laugh. I'm serious. Little uncle, you have to work hard. When you make money, you have to buy me candy. Everyone laughed even louder. Fu Wei, who was sitting beside her, was also amused by her cute appearance. He reached out to stroke her soft hair and said with a smile, okay, I will definitely work hard so that I can earn money to buy sweets for little Guai. After finishing the meal, Fu Wei temporarily dismissed the idea of retreating. When they went downstairs, Xia Dong was holding Xia Ling's arm. The mother and daughter chatted and laughed intimately. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao followed behind them. Bailey Han held Xiao Guai's hand and walked at the back with Fu Qinghai and his son. The family walked out of the hotel, talking and laughing. Bailey Han let go of Xiao Guai's little hand and said with a smile, Dad, Mom, wait here for a moment. I'll go get the car. Okay, Ahan. Slow down. There's no hurry. Xia Ling smiled kindly. Bailey Han acknowledged and walked with steady steps to the parking lot. It was already past 8:00 in the evening, and the streets were brightly lit. They happened to be standing at the entrance of the hotel, and the bright lights poured down on them. Xia Zhensheng, who was walking slowly toward the hotel, saw them at a glance and recognized Xia Dong and the children. Xia Dong and the others were chatting and didn't notice Xia Zhensheng. Xia Zhensheng was only 5 or 6 meters away from them. He hesitated for a moment, but still walked towards the entrance of the hotel. Xiao Guai was the first to notice Xia Zhensheng. She ran to Xia Dong's side and tugged at her clothes. Mommy, look. It's Grandpa. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction Xiao Guai was pointing. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Xia Dong held onto Xia Ling's arm and could clearly feel her mother's body tremble. Fu Qinghai's expression also turned ugly. Even Fu Wei, who had always been mischievous, sensed that something was wrong and wiped the sloppy smile off his face. Xia Zhensheng noticed that everyone was staring at him and felt a little awkward. He braced himself and walked over to Xia Dong and the others. He smiled and said, Xia, you're having dinner here. Who are these people? His gaze swept over Xia Ling, Fu Qinghai, and the others before finally landing on Fu Wei. He still remembered this young man. He was the one who had called Xia Dong, sis, at the mall. Xia Ling held Xia Dong's hand tightly. She secretly patted the back of her mother's hand to comfort her. She looked at Xia Zhensheng and said calmly, they are my friends. It has nothing to do with you. Xia Zhensheng felt a little awkward and forced a smile. I'm here for a class reunion. I'll be upstairs. I'll be leaving first. Xia Dong nodded calmly. He glanced at Xia Ling and Fu Qinghai again. Strange, their expressions were very stiff, especially that old woman. The way she looked at him made his hair stand on end. Xia Zhensheng's heart was filled with doubts as he walked towards the hotel. Fu Wei watched Xia Zhensheng walk away and snorted disdainfully. Sis, is that your father? Xia Ling glared at him. Keep your voice down. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid that he'll recognize you? Fu Wei shrugged indifferently. You're all old now. How could he recognize you so easily? Even so, Xia Ling still had lingering fears. She sighed. If possible, she really didn't want to see that man again for the rest of her life. Xia Dong comforted her in a low voice. Just then, Bailey Han drove the car over. The family pretended that nothing had happened and got into the car to go home. As for Xia Zhensheng, he sat in the middle of a group of old classmates and listened to everyone flattering and teasing each other. He was still puzzled. That old woman Xia Dong was holding on to, that old woman and the man behind them seemed familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen them before. The former class monitor was now the boss of a private enterprise. Seeing that Xia Zhensheng was silent, he patted him on the shoulder and smiled. Zhensheng, we're old classmates. We haven't seen each other for decades. Why are you just sitting there without saying anything? Someone teased, Zhensheng, don't tell me you're thinking about your wife. Everyone burst into laughter. Xia Zhensheng smiled awkwardly. Don't talk nonsense. We're not talking nonsense. Your wife is a famous person in a city. She's the Iron Lady of the business world. Not only is she capable, she's also beautiful. You're really lucky to be able to marry her. Xia Zhensheng pursed his lips and didn't reply. The class monitor gossiped. I'm curious. What does Su Murong see in you? She clearly knows that you have a wife, but she's still following you wholeheartedly. Speaking of which, you even let Xia Ling down back then. Xia Zhensheng's expression became uglier and uglier. His hands clenched into fists. The class monitor sitting beside him was the first to notice his abnormality. He quickly said, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go sing. The others knew that they had stirred up trouble and quickly agreed. Okay, Xia Zhensheng stood up and said in a low voice, you guys go ahead. I still have something to do. I'll go back first. Zhensheng, we haven't gathered for a long time. Let's go together, okay? You sang well back then and charmed many female classmates. I wonder how your voice is now. Let us see. Add, Xinwu 799. Chapter 350. Immediately, a female classmate expressed, that's right, Zhensheng. We girls like to hear you sing. Let's go together. Don't disappoint us. Xia Zhensheng ignored everyone's urging and shook his head, I really can't. My wife ordered me to be home before 10 p.m. every night. Next time, it's my treat. Alright, let's not stop him. It's our fault for causing a conflict between husband and wife. Xinsheng, you have to remember what you said just now. Next time, you'll be the host. The class monitor patted his shoulder. Xia Xinsheng smiled, okay, I'll remember. You guys have fun. He waved his hand and walked out of the private room. He closed the door but didn't rush to leave. Instead, he let out a long sigh. In the private room, the class monitor complained to the classmate with the big mouth, big head, look at you. Of all things to bring up, you had to bring up Xia Ling. He must be feeling bad right now. I didn't do it on purpose. Xia Xinsheng left the hotel and drove home. His mind was filled with Big Head's words, you let Xia Ling down. This sentence was like a curse, lingering in his mind and driving him crazy. When he got home, the whole villa was dark except for the lights in the living room. He leaned on the sofa dejectedly and called the servant, Madam isn't back yet? The servant replied, Madam went to a villa in the suburbs for a few days and hasn't been home recently. Before she left, she asked you to take good care of Mississippi. Su Xingchen was still in the hospital and his temper was getting weirder. Other than Su Murong, he didn't have a good attitude towards anyone. Xia Xinsheng had a headache just thinking about his daughter. He waved his hand tiredly and signaled the servant to leave. In the empty room, there wasn't a trace of life. It was terrifyingly cold. He took a bottle of whiskey from the wine rack, took a wine glass and twisted it into the bedroom. It wasn't his and Su Murong's bedroom. It was his private room. They had been separated for a long time. Ever since Su Xingchen found out that he had hidden the photos of Xia Ling and her mother in a compartment of his desk 6 years ago, he no longer dared to place the photos in his study. Instead, he hid them in his bedroom. From the closet, he found the photo that he had treasured for many years and held it tightly to his chest. He poured a full glass of wine and drank it in one gulp. The bitter and spicy taste stimulated his taste buds and his nasal cavity. Tears welled up in his eyes. The wife and daughter in the photo were smiling peacefully. At that time, they were so happy. If Su Murong had not appeared, they would have continued to be happy. Xia Xinsheng burst into laughter as tears rolled down his cheeks. He pounded his chest with his left hand and repeatedly said, I'm sorry. He would never forget the fire 20 years ago. That fire had not only burned Xia Ling to death, it had also destroyed his entire heart. I don't know how many glasses of wine. Xia Xinsheng is completely drunk. He holds the photo and cries loudly. For decades, he has been suppressing his feelings. Now, he finally vents them out and can't stop. He was so drunk that the next morning, he missed his alarm and his morning classes. He slept until noon and woke up with a splitting headache from the hangover. The bed was a mess and there were vomit marks on the floor. The air was filled with the stench of alcohol and filth. He almost couldn't help but vomit again. He quickly opened the window to let in some fresh air. Before calling the servants to clean up the room, Xia Xinsheng found the photos of Xia Ling and her mother on the bed. He planned to hide the photos, but he reluctantly looked at their faces and then put the photos in the bottom drawer of the cabinet. Just as he stood up and was about to ask the servants to clean up the room, a pair of eyes suddenly flashed in his mind. It was a pair of eyes filled with hatred. It was the gaze she had given him when he had divorced Xia Ling. Xia Ling had knelt in front of him and begged him, but he had left without hesitation. Her eyes, which were filled with resentment, gradually overlapped with the eyes of the old woman she saw last night. His body suddenly froze. His face was pale and his heart was thumping. He looked like he was in a daze. He muttered to himself, no, that's impossible. She was clearly burned to death. No, her body was not found in the fire. If it wasn't her, why was Xia so close to her? Who is that man? He looks so familiar. I must have seen him somewhere. What's going on? What's going on? Is she really not dead? Xia Xinsheng was almost driven crazy by the thoughts in his mind. He hit his head with both hands and squatted on the floor. One moment he laughed, the next he cried. The servants who came upstairs to clean were shocked to see him like this. They quickly ran up to help him. Sir, what's wrong? Are you okay? Tell me, is she dead or not? Xia Zhensheng suddenly grabbed the servant's arm. His eyes were emitting a fierce light. His expression was fierce and scary. Sir, wake up. The servant was so scared that her face was pale. She screamed, someone, come quickly. Sir has gone crazy. Xia Zhensheng was stimulated by her screams. His mind gradually cleared up. He pushed her away and ran into the bathroom. He closed the door tightly and splashed his face and head with cold water. Sir, are you okay? The butler heard the commotion and rushed over. He knocked on the bathroom door. Xia Zhensheng looked at himself in the mirror. He took a deep breath and said, I'm fine. The butler and servants were relieved. Xia Zhensheng finished washing up and wiped his face. He came out of the bathroom and said in a low voice, I just had a nightmare. Nothing happened. Okay, we understand. The others nodded quickly. He nodded in satisfaction. Clean up the room. He did not know that after he left and went to the study room, the maid quietly reported his madness to Su Murong, who was in the villa in the suburbs. At this time, Su Murong, wearing a sexy swimsuit, was lying on a white recliner, comfortably basking in the sun. In the swimming pool, a young and robust man was leisurely swimming with his upper body naked. Su Murong lazily said, What did he say? The maid whispered, I only heard one sentence. He asked me, Tell me, is she dead or not? Su Murong's eyes slightly tightened. She lightly said, the she in his words, who is he referring to? Sir did not say. By the way, madam, Sir warned us that he only had a nightmare. Okay, I know. If there's anything else, report it to me. Su Murong cut off the call. Her distant gaze looked over the tall trees by the swimming pool to the horizon. Is she dead or not? Who was she referring to? The handsome man in the swimming pool stood up from the water. Water droplets slid down his muscular chest. His sexy Adam's apple bobbed up and down. Needless to say, it was very seductive. He draped a bath towel over his shoulders and slowly walked towards Su Murong. He bent over and kissed her on the cheek. There was a smile in his deep black eyes and his voice was low and magnetic. Baby, what are you thinking about? Su Murong's hands hooked around his neck. She carefully looked at his face. His eyebrows were sharp and his nose was high. His facial features were similar to her godfather's. When he smiled, the similarity could reach up to 70 to 80%. The corner of her lips curled up slightly. She lightly said, Nothing. The man leaned over and kissed her lips. His hands caressed her charming figure. She pushed his chest and lightly said, Shenran, I'm not in the mood right now. Okay. There was a hint of helplessness in Shenran's voice. He let go of her and sat on the chair beside her. He tilted his head and looked at her. Darling, are you in a bad mood? Su Murong supported her forehead with one hand. Her charming almond-shaped eyes flashed with a touch of sadness. Do you think there's a need for my marriage to continue? Shenran chuckled. Darling, since you don't want that useless man anymore, just dump him and throw yourself into my arms. I've wanted to be your husband for many years. Su Murong glanced at him and lightly said, Aren't you afraid that people will say that you're living off a woman? Moreover, I'm 20 years older than you. Shenran's lips curled up into a frivolous smile. So what? True love doesn't care about age. I'm living off a woman. There's no need to worry about people gossiping. Su Murong reached out and patted his young and handsome face. Her eyes were cold. Don't forget that other than our physical relationship, we don't talk about feelings. I don't have feelings anymore. Shenran's expression darkened. He self-deprecatingly curved his lips. I thought I was special. She used her fingers to trace his handsome features. Her tone was indifferent. You're special because in my heart, you're another man's substitute. Shinran, don't forget your identity just because I dote on you. Shinran smiled bitterly. Okay, I'll remember. Su Murong satisfactorily patted his cheek. Okay, let's go in first. I want to be alone for a while. Shinran nodded. He stood up with a white bath towel draped over his shoulders. He turned and walked towards the villa. His shiny black hair covered his forehead and also covered the haze that flashed across his eyes. Xia Jinsheng was excited by his shocking discovery. All the blood in his body was boiling. He wanted to find out the truth as soon as possible to confirm his thoughts. However, he didn't know where to start the investigation. After thinking for a long time, he decided to hire a private investigator. Xia Jinsheng knew that Bailey Han was very powerful and often sent bodyguards to protect Xia. If the private investigator followed Xia, the bodyguards might find out and all his efforts would be in vain. Therefore, he asked the private investigator to secretly monitor Xia Yun's family. He guessed that if Xia Ling really didn't die, she would definitely contact her sister Xia Yun. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. The private investigator still didn't get any useful information. Xia Jinsheng, who was anxiously waiting, gradually lost his confidence. Maybe he was wrong. That old woman wasn't Xia Ling. His ex-wife, Xia Ling, had died in the fire. Just as his restless heart calmed down, the private investigator suddenly contacted him. Welfare, Hengcha 866. Chapter 351. In a cafe. A man in a black suit and sunglasses was sitting by the window with a newspaper in his hand. He was reading it carefully. Xia Jinsheng sat down opposite him and asked in a low voice, "Any news?" The man put down the newspaper, took out a stack of photos from his pocket, and placed them on the table. Xia Yun went to the Jiangnan Shuigan district yesterday. Take a look at the photos yourself. Xia Jinsheng picked up the stack of photos and looked through them carefully. There were photos of Xia Yun shopping in the supermarket, and photos of her walking into the Jiangnan Shuigan district. Then, there were a few photos of her talking and laughing with the old woman when she knocked on the door of a house. Xia Jinsheng asked, "Did you hear their conversation?" "I heard it. I recorded it, but it was too far away and the recording was very noisy." The detective took a sip of coffee and said, "It was just a very normal conversation." Xia Yun said, "Sister, I'm here to see you," and the other woman smiled and welcomed her in. Xia Jinsheng asked excitedly, "Did you hear it clearly? Did she really call her sister?" "Of course I heard it clearly." Although it was far away, the corridor was very quiet, and the voices were especially clear. Xia Jinsheng's heart was beating violently in his chest. He couldn't help but tear up. His fingers clenched tightly in his palms, and his shoulders trembled rapidly. He didn't say a word for a long time. The detective frowned. "Mr. Xia, are you okay?" Xia Jinsheng buried his head and waved his hand. "No, I'm fine." "Where did Xia Yun go? What's the specific address?" "Jiangnan Shuigan District, Block A, Unit 3, Room 501. Xia Jinsheng took the stack of photos out of the cafe and sat in the car in a daze for a long time. He looked at Xia Ling in the photos seriously. The scar on her face was so obvious, and her obviously disabled right leg must have been caused by the fire. He closed his eyes in heartache, not daring to look at it directly. After moving to the city, Xia Ling and Fu Qinghai lived a very comfortable life. Although they were not used to it at first, Xia Dong came to visit them every day, took them to the park for a walk, and let them learn to dance or sing with the old aunties in the park to pass the time. In addition, Fu Wei had finally started to work, so they were even happier and felt satisfied with their lives. However, they did not expect Xia Jinsheng to suddenly appear and break their peaceful life. Xia Ling and Fu Qinghai were watching TV in the living room when they heard a knock on the door. Fu Qinghai thought it was Xia Dong, so he shouted, "Coming, coming," and ran to open the door. Upon seeing the person outside the door, Fu Qinghai froze. "Old Fu, is Xia Xia here? Why are you standing at the door?" Xia Ling's voice came from the living room. Fu Qinghai looked flustered. When Xia Zhenqing heard Xia Ling's words, he was even more certain of her identity. He forced a smile. "Are you Fu Dehai?" Fu Qinghai's expression was ugly. "I'm not. You've got the wrong person." He was about to close the door when Xia Zhenqing suddenly blocked the door and said, "Dehai, don't hide it from me anymore. I know it's you. The person inside is Xia Ling. She's Xia Xia's mother, right?" Fu Qinghai lowered his voice. "You're not welcome here. Leave." He pushed the door forcefully, but Xia Zhenqing resisted with all his might. "Dehai, don't be like this. I want to talk to Xia Ling." Fu Qinghai's eyes were spitting fire. He lowered his voice and said, "What's there to talk about? You're already divorced. She's my wife now." The two old men pushed back and forth at the door, gritting their teeth as they competed. Xia Ling had already sensed that something was wrong. She asked curiously, "Dehai, who is it?" Fu Qinghai replied, "It's an insurance salesman." Xia Ling remembered that her son was also in the sales business and her heart softened. She said, "Let him in. It's good to have a cup of tea." Xia Zhenqing said loudly, "Xia Ling, it's me. I want to talk to you." Xia Ling's mind was blown. She was extremely familiar with this voice. It was this man who had broken her heart. She dragged her crippled leg and staggered to the door. She glared at Xia Zhenqing. "I have nothing to talk to you about. Leave. Xia Ling, I'm begging you. Let's talk." Xia Zhenqing looked at her pleadingly. Go. Hurry up and leave. I don't want to see you." Xia Ling helped Fu Qinghai push Xia Zhenqing out of the door and slammed it shut. Xia Zhenqing did not give up. He banged on the door and shouted, "Xia Ling, open the door. Let's talk." Xia Ling and her husband wanted to ignore him and let him bang on the door. However, he was shouting so loudly that if the neighbors heard him, they might gossip. Xia Ling had no choice but to open the door. She stared at him expressionlessly. "Come in." In the living room, Xia Zhenqing sat opposite Xia Ling and her husband. Facing their cold gazes, he forced a bitter smile. "Xia Ling, I want to talk to you alone." Fu Qinghai's face darkened. He was about to explode when Xia Ling patted the back of his hand and said, "Old Fu, go into the room first." But Fu Qinghai was worried that Xia Zhenqing would hurt Xia Ling. Xia Ling smiled. "It's fine. Go in first." Fu Qinghai sighed and left the living room. "All right, it's just the two of us now. What do you want to say?" "Say it." Xia Ling's face was cold. Xia Zhenqing looked pained. "Ah Ling, your face and legs, were they damaged by the fire?" Xia Ling sneered. "Why? Do you think it's a pity that I didn't die in the fire?" "Ah Ling, don't say that. I know you didn't die. I'm really happy." "You're happy. You can't wait for me to die. I won't be an eyesore to you." Xia Zhenqing's eyes were filled with sorrow. "Ah Ling, I know I've let you and Xia Xia down, but I have my reasons." Xia Ling said angrily, "Reasons? You have your reasons." Miss Rich took a liking to you. For money and status, you abandoned your wife and daughter. You have your reasons. Xia Zhenqing, aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others? Xia Zhenqing hurriedly said, "Ah Ling, I'm telling the truth. Listen to me." Xia Ling looked at him coldly. "Fine, tell me. I'd like to see what kind of lies you can come up with." Xia Zhenqing gritted his teeth. His face was pale. "Years ago, I met Su Murong at an art exhibition. She said she fell in love with me at first sight and wanted to date me. Xia Ling interrupted him sternly. That's enough. I don't want to know how you two hooked up. Xia Zhensheng, get out of here right now. She pointed at the door angrily. Ah Ling, listen to me. I rejected her. I really did. I told her I had a wife and a daughter, but she didn't listen and continued to pester me. Once, I was eating with my colleagues at a restaurant. She was drunk and pestered me to send her home. I saw that it was dangerous for a woman to be drunk outside, so I kindly sent her home. Later, her servant poured me a glass of water. After I drank it, I lost consciousness. At this point, Xia Zhensheng's expression was pained, embarrassed, and a little guilty. Later, I woke up in her bed. Her parents rushed in, saying that I had ruined her innocence and forcing me to marry her. Xia Ling raised her hand and slapped him. She said angrily, "Keep lying. Keep lying." "I'm not lying. I'm telling you the truth." Xia Zhensheng looked embarrassed. That memory was a stain in his life. He had hidden it in the bottom of his heart and hadn't touched it for more than 20 years. Now that he had opened it up, he was the one who was heartbroken. Xia Ling said coldly, "Even if what you said was true, why didn't you tell me back then?" Xia Zhensheng covered his face with his hands. He was too ashamed to face her. "I didn't know how to tell you. Also, her parents threatened me that I had to marry her. If I told anyone about this, not only would they sue the school and make me lose my job, they would also hurt you and Xia. Ah Ling, I don't care if I lose my job, but I don't want them to hurt you and Xia. Tears rolled down from his fingers and dripped onto the coffee table, forming a puddle. Xia Ling looked at the embarrassed man in front of her expressionlessly. "You told me clearly back then that the person you loved was Su Murong. She could give you status and money, so I didn't believe a word you said. Xia Zhensheng, leave. Don't disturb my life ever again." Xia Zhensheng suddenly let go of his hands. His old face was covered with tears. He said painfully, "Ah Ling, I'm telling you the truth. I had no choice but to lie to you back then." Xia Ling sneered. "Do you really think I'm stupid? Su Murong is a rich girl. Why would she degrade herself and marry you in such a lowly way? You're just a poor teacher. What do you have that's worth her doing that?" I don't know. Xia Zhensheng had thought about this question for more than 20 years but still couldn't figure it out. Because through these years of interaction, he could tell that Su Murong wasn't like what she said. She didn't fall in love with him at first sight and marry no one else but him. Xia Ling snorted. "That's right. I can't believe you could come up with such a illogical lie. I'm telling the truth. Ah Ling, why can't you believe me just this once?" Xia Dong looked defeated. "Actually, after we divorced, I secretly went to see you and our daughter. Later, Su Murong found out and she even argued with me. She even threatened me that if I went to see you again, she would harm you, so I didn't dare to see you again. It wasn't until 5 years ago when I met Xia that I found out that you set a fire and committed suicide. Ah Ling, I'm sorry. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have become like this. Stop." Xia Ling stretched out her hand and said, "Don't make yourself sound so important. I didn't commit suicide, and it wasn't because of you. The fire was just an accident." Xia Zhensheng was stunned. An accident? According to what he had heard from his former neighbors, Xia Ling couldn't forget the pain of being abandoned by him. Her small restaurant had been destroyed, and her life had become too difficult. So, she abandoned her daughter and burned herself to death. Ad. Songshu 566. Chapter 352. Xia Ling's expression was cold. "Commit suicide for a heartless man like you? I'm not that stupid. There's no way I'd abandon Xia. Xia Zhensheng's face alternated between red and white. His mouth moved and he was about to say something when there was a knock on the door. Xia Ling didn't even look at Xia Zhensheng. She got up and limped to open the door. Xia Zhensheng looked at her crippled right leg. His heart ached so much that he almost couldn't breathe. Xia Ling was a famous beauty back then. When they were dating, everyone praised them for being a perfect match. However, life was unpredictable. Their happy family was ruined by Su Murong. This time, it was Xia Dong standing at the door with a bag of fruit in her hand. Xia Ling forced a smile. Xia, you're here. Mom, what's wrong? Xia Dong acutely sensed that something was wrong with her mother's mood, so she asked her as she changed her shoes. Xia Ling pursed her lips and said, Xia Zhensheng is here. Xia Dong froze in the middle of changing her shoes. She paused for a moment, straightened up, and said in a low voice, he knows? Xia Ling nodded. He's still here. If you don't want to see him, you should avoid him for now. Xia Dong didn't look too good. It's fine. I'm not the one in the wrong anyway. She had already planned to let go of the grudge and improve her relationship with Xia Zhensheng. However, she couldn't control her emotions every time she thought of her mother's suffering. Xia Zhensheng saw Xia Dong walking over with a cold expression and called out her name uneasily. Xia Dong ignored him and went straight to the kitchen. She sorted out the fruits and put them in the fridge before sitting next to her mother. She glanced at Xia Zhensheng indifferently and said calmly, what are you doing here? Xia Zhensheng's lips quivered a few times before he mumbled, I'm here to talk to your mother. What's there to talk about? You've been divorced for many years. Xia Dong's tone sounded extremely cold, as if she was facing a stranger. Xia. I had my reasons back then. Su Murong's parents forced me to marry her. Otherwise, they would hurt you and your mother. I had no choice. Xia Ling was furious. Don't push all the blame onto me and Xia. You're the one who's greedy. Ah Ling, why don't you believe me? Xia Zhensheng felt helpless as he had returned to the starting point. Xia Ling said, you don't have to say any more. I won't believe anything you say. Just leave. In that case, I'll leave first. Let me know if you have any difficulties. Xia Zhensheng understood her temper. She was stubborn and she was still angry. It was already good enough that she didn't chase him out with a broom. It was better for him to leave first and come back when she calmed down. After Xia Zhensheng left, Xia Ling repeated what he said to Xia Dong. After Xia Dong heard it, her first reaction was the same as Xia Ling's. She thought that Xia Zhensheng was lying. However, after she thought about it logically, she felt that there was something suspicious. Mom, Xia Zhensheng said that after you divorced, he came to visit us. Su Murong found out about it and threatened to harm us if he ever came to visit us again. After that, your little restaurant was smashed. After that, you had an accident. If what Xia Zhensheng said is true. Xia Ling was shocked. You think that Su Murong was behind the smashing of the restaurant and the accident that happened to me? Xia Dong furrowed her brows. I'm only suspecting it. Of course, the prerequisite is that Xia Zhensheng is telling the truth. Xia Ling couldn't believe it as she shook her head. That's impossible. Xia Zhensheng has already divorced me. Even if he came to visit me, what could he do? Did Su Murong need to be so ruthless? I'm not a threat to her. Xia Dong sighed. Mom, you don't understand the Su family at all. To be able to give birth to a daughter like Su Xingqian, as a mother, how could she be easy to deal with? I still feel that there's something suspicious about this matter. I must get to the bottom of it. When her parents divorced, Xia Dong was only 6 or 7 years old. She didn't know much about what happened between them. The only thing she remembered was that her mother held her hand as they chased after Xia Zhensheng in the rain. Her mother accidentally fell and knelt in the rain as she cried. At that time, there was lightning and thunder. The young girl was so scared that she was left with the after effect of being afraid of thunder. She wasn't clear about the situation at that time, but her aunt and uncle definitely remembered it. Hence, after Xia Dong said goodbye to her mother, she went to her aunt's house. Coincidentally, Gao Mingyuan didn't have class and was at home. Xia Dong explained the reason for her visit. Xia Yun and Gao Mingyuan's expressions turned serious. Xia Yun said, "Back then, your parents were very close. However, one day, your father suddenly invited your mother to a small tea house. At the same time, Su Murong appeared. Your father said that he liked Su Murong and wanted to divorce your mother. Your mother refused, so Su Murong took out a stack of money to send your mother away. Your mother felt insulted and slapped Su Murong. Your father was really a jerk. He actually slapped your mother back. She was furious. She gritted her teeth and said, at that time, your mother wanted to get your father back. She even put down her pride and knelt down to beg him. However, he was still determined to divorce her. Your mother was heartbroken by him and had no choice but to divorce him. That's basically what happened back then. I think Xia Zhensheng was very willing to marry Su Murong. It didn't seem like he was forced at all." Speaking of that man, Xia Yun's face was full of disgust. Gao Mingyuan frowned and thought for a moment. He said, "Actually, there's one more thing that I haven't mentioned to anyone." Xia Yun was stunned. "Is it about Xia Zhensheng?" Gao Mingyuan said seriously, "You can say that." "Wife, do you still remember that I was there when Big Sister's restaurant was smashed?" Xia Yun nodded. "I remember. Don't keep me in suspense. Hurry up and tell me." That day, a group of gangsters inexplicably rushed in and smashed Big Sister's restaurant without saying anything. After smashing it, they ran away. At that time, I wanted to chase after them and send them to the police station. In the end, I chased them to a street and found that the leader of the gangsters took a stack of money from a woman. It seemed that the woman had bribed them. Xia Dong asked nervously, "Who is that woman?" "I only saw her side profile. She quickly got into a car and ran away. I can't confirm her identity, but I suspect that it's Su Murong." Xia Yun's expression changed. She said anxiously, "Why didn't you say such an important thing at that time?" Gao Mingyuan smiled bitterly. "When I called the police, I mentioned it to the police station. They said that they would investigate, but in the end, the investigation was left unsettled. As for that woman's identity, I only guessed. I didn't have any evidence, so I didn't mention it to you." Xia Dong frowned. If Su Murong really ordered people to smash the restaurant, then the fire could also be man-made. Xia Yun said angrily, "If the fire was also caused by Su Murong, we can't let her go. We must let her be punished by the law. After all, the fire happened so many years ago. It was not easy to investigate clearly." Fortunately, with the help of Bailey Han, they were able to get the details of the incident from the police station. They also asked the bureau chief to send the most powerful criminal police to investigate this matter. Su family. Su Xingqian was discharged from the hospital. After nearly a year of plastic surgery, Su Xingqian's face looked a lot better. It was not as scary as before, but it would never be able to return to her previous appearance. She was now full of inferiority towards her face. Even at home, she wore a mask and hat, only revealing her eyes. In her room, other than Su Murong, no one was allowed to enter, not even Xia Zhensheng. As long as the servants looked at her, she would fly into a rage. No matter what was in her hand, she would not hesitate to throw it at them. Once, she threw a bowl of steaming hot chicken soup at a maid, causing blisters to appear on the maid's chest. The Su family's servants were submissive in front of her, silent like cicadas in winter. In fact, they were all silently praying that a month would pass quickly. Because Su Xingqian could only stay at home for a month before she was sent back to prison to serve her sentence. Su Murong had to worry about her daughter's situation while also taking care of the company's affairs. She had a headache. She rubbed her eyebrows and leaned on the sofa. The maid who followed her orders to monitor Xia Zhencheng walked to her side and respectfully said, Madam, sir went to Jiangnan Shuyan district again today. Su Murong put down her hand and stared sharply at the maid. Ah Xiao, did you find out who lives there? I found out. It's an old couple. The man is called Fu Qinghai and the woman is called Xia Ling. Su Murong's eyes suddenly widened. What did you say? Xia Ling. Yes, that woman has a scar on her face and her right leg is disabled. In the process of my investigation, I found out that Xia Dong went to visit them. They seemed to be very close. Close, of course they were close. Because Xia Ling was Xia Dong's mother. That fire actually did not burn her to death. That woman's life was really tough, just like that slut of a daughter of hers. Su Murong's face was gloomy. Her smooth and well-manicured fingertips fiercely dug into her palms. Her eyes were deep and cold. Do you know what Sir did when he went to Jiangnan Shuyan district? Ah Xiao shook her head. I'm not sure. He only stayed there for half an hour. After he came out, his mood was a bit strange. He seemed to be very sad. Su Murong raised her hand and coldly said, All right, let's not talk about him anymore. Yes. Ah Xiao nodded respectfully. Su Murong was silent for a moment before slowly saying, Xiao, is there any news about Godfather? Not yet. Su Murong supported her forehead with one hand and tiredly waved her hand. All right, you can leave first. Continue to inquire about Godfather. Not long after Ah Xiao left, Su Xingchen hugged a pillow and knocked on her door. Mommy, I can't sleep. Can I sleep with you? Su Murong's brows relaxed and a smile appeared on her face. Come in. The mother and daughter lay on the same bed. Su Xingchen curled up in Su Murong's arms and raised his head. He said pitifully, Mommy, there's actually something that I've been hiding from you. Welfare, Xinwu 799. Chapter 353. Su Murong gently stroked her hair and said softly, What's the matter? Su Xingchen hugged her waist and said softly, When I was in junior high school, I met a very, very good uncle. In the end, he took me as his goddaughter. I think he treats me better than Daddy. No matter what I want, he will help me get it. No matter what trouble I get into, he will help me settle it. Su Murong knew that she was talking about her godfather, Shangguan Ao. Her heart ached and she hugged her tightly. Half a year ago, Godfather suddenly said that he was going abroad and said that he would contact me. But until now, he hasn't contacted me and I can't contact him. Mommy, do you think Godfather doesn't want me because I've become ugly? Su Xingchen, who was as irritable as a fire-breathing dragon in front of the servants, was now like a little lamb. Her big, watery eyes stared pitifully at Su Murong. Su Murong's nose turned sour and she almost couldn't hold back her tears. She bit her lip and forced a smile. No, Xingchen, your godfather won't abandon you. Godfather gave me a special phone before. He said that as long as I use that phone, I can contact him no matter when or where. But now, I can't reach him even with the special phone. If it's not that he doesn't want me, then something must have happened. Su Xingchen's eyes were filled with panic. Mommy, will Godfather be okay? Su Murong didn't know how to answer her. Ever since that night when she and her godfather made love, her feelings for him showed signs of rekindling. She couldn't help but want to find him. But after a long time, she still couldn't find his whereabouts. In fact, Su Murong had the same worry. Her godfather had met with an accident. Mikakito had used Xingchen to force her godfather to show himself. After that, her godfather disappeared. She even suspected that his disappearance had something to do with Mikakito. Mommy? Su Xingchen tugged at her robe. Su Murong returned to her senses. She stroked her daughter's hair and said softly, Baby, don't think about it anymore. Your godfather will be fine. She was comforting her daughter and herself. Okay. Su Xingqian threw herself into her arms. Su Murong stroked her hair from time to time and stared blankly at the chandelier on the ceiling. His thoughts wandered off somewhere. Su Xingqian said gloomily, "Mommy, I'll be sent back to prison in 10 days, right?" "Mommy, I don't want to go to prison. Can you help me?" Su Murong was helpless. "Xingqian, Mommy has no choice. Your sentence has long been decided." Su Xingqian. I don't want to leave you." Su Murong held her daughter's tear-stained face and said softly, "Xingqian, listen to me. As long as you behave well, Mommy can find someone to shorten your sentence. You just have to endure for 1 or 2 years. Trust me, baby." Su Xingqian burst into tears. 1 or 2 years. She didn't want to stay in prison for even 1 or 2 days. If only her godfather was here. He might be able to find a way to help her. "Godfather, where did he go?" Su Murong took a tissue from the bedside table and wiped her daughter's tears. She comforted her. "Baby, don't cry. Trust Mommy. You'll get better soon." Under her comfort, Su Xingqian gradually stopped sobbing. Su Murong stroked her daughter's hair. Her eyes were cold. Every time she saw her poor daughter, she hated Mika Keto, Xia Dong, and the others to the core. No, she couldn't let Xia Dong and Mika Keto live a good life so easily. She knew that she didn't have the ability to fight against Mika Keto, but she could at least hurt him indirectly. As long as she hurt Xia Dong, it was the same as hurting Mika Keto. Her eyes darted around. She was already planning how to deal with Xia Dong and Xia Ling. Axia wasn't an ordinary maid. She was the last gift that Shengguan Ao gave to Su Murong when he abandoned Su Murong. Axia was actually a very skilled assassin. She had the superb martial arts and excellent investigative skills of an assassin. Therefore, Su Murong trusted her to investigate Xia Dong's family. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy. First, she had to know Xia Dong's Achilles heel. Only then could she deal with her better. Fu Wei was very excited. He finally got his first order. The client was a 3-star hotel. The hotel manager negotiated with him and decided to sign the order the next day. The next day, he dressed up in a shiny suit and leather shoes. He looked handsome and dashing. He carried his briefcase and walked confidently into the hotel with his chest puffed out. But half an hour later, he was thrown out by a few security guards with his face covered in dirt. There was no other reason. The hotel manager went back on his word. He said that he wasn't willing to buy their company's management software and had already signed an agreement with another software company. Fu Wei was very angry. He was young and impetuous. He fell out with the manager on the spot and scolded him. In the end, he was chased out by the security guards. Fu Wei stood outside the hotel building and pulled his tie angrily. He ignored the curious gazes of the crowd and cursed the hotel manager who went back on his word. Suddenly, an arm patted him on the shoulder. "Hey, brother, what are you doing?" Fu Wei's cursing voice came to an abrupt stop. He impatiently turned around and saw the man in front of him. His face immediately revealed a smile. "I was wondering who it was." "So it's you." The man was wearing a pair of loose jeans and a black vest. The muscles on his arms bulged like a small hill. His hair was tied up to his neck and he wore a thick gold necklace around his neck. He had thick eyebrows and a straight nose. His appearance was rough and his whole body exuded a masculine aura. He looked at Fu Wei from head to toe. "Ah Wei, you didn't contact your buddies for a while. You came here to do this?" His eyes stared at his briefcase. Fu Wei smiled embarrassedly. "Ah Chang, you know that I owe a lot of gambling debts. The sales are quick. I can't do anything about it." Ah Chang patted his shoulder and laughed heartily. "When you dress up like this, you really do look like something. How is it? Is work going well?" Fu Wei looked depressed. "Hey, don't mention it. I was just chased out. The manager of this hotel is AF * King Bastard. We had already agreed to sign the order yesterday. Today, he suddenly went back on his word. I really want to F * King beat him up. Forget it. Don't be depressed. How can work be so easy? We haven't seen each other in a long time. Let's go for a drink. Fu Wei scratched his head awkwardly. I can't. I'm still working. Chang slapped him on the back and stared at him with a pair of bell-like eyes. Kid, do you dare to be a little more promising? What's work? Monkey and Snake Boy also want to see you. Let's go. Don't dawdle like a girl. Chang was a head taller than Fu Wei, who was 1.7 meters tall. In addition, he had a strong and sturdy body. With his ape arm around his shoulder, he directly dragged him away. A flashy motorcycle was parked by the side of the road. Chang picked up a helmet and handed it to him. He put on the other one and patted the back seat. Hurry up and get on. Fu Wei was already unhappy that his client stood him up. In addition, his buddies were waiting for him. The last bit of hesitation in his heart dissipated. He got on the motorcycle and threw his work to the back of his mind. Fu Wei saw Monkey and Snake Boy in Chang's rented apartment. Monkey was a very thin young man. He wore loose clothes on his body as if a gust of wind could blow him away. Although he looked like this, among these people, he was the most ruthless. When he fought, he did not show any mercy. He had once stabbed someone to death with a knife. Snake Boy had dyed his hair in all kinds of colors and had shiny earrings on his ears. With a cigarette in his mouth, he punched Fu Wei's chest and said in a hooligan manner, "You're really something, you brat. You abandoned us brothers and went to be a white-collar worker." Fu Wei chuckled. I had no other choice. At worst, I'll pay for tonight's expenses. Monkey jumped over and wrapped his arms around his neck. He laughed sinisterly. You said it. We're going to Mr. Rich Boss tonight. The chicks there are the prettiest. Okay, Mr. Rich Boss it is. Let's go. Fu Wei calculated the money in his wallet. There was still a sum of money left from the last time his sister gave him. In addition to the money he recently swindled from his parents, it should be enough. Snake Boy tugged at his clothes and sneered. You're going dressed like this? You'll make people laugh their heads off. Monkey dug out a few clothes from the pile of clothes on the sofa and threw them to him. Change. Fu Wei sniffed in disgust. Did you just change out of these? Monkey punched him in annoyance. Of course not. These are the clean clothes I just collected from the balcony. Then I'm relieved. Mr. Rich Bar was the busiest and most chaotic bar in the red light district. There were all kinds of people here. As soon as they stepped in, they were infected by the shocking electronic music and noisy cheers inside. Their blood was boiling all over. On the stage, a group of beauties with heavy makeup and wearing bikinis were dancing a hot erotic dance with a white feather in their hands. From time to time, they would throw flirtatious glances at the men below the stage whose eyes were burning with fire. Their souls were about to be taken away. Monkey and Snake Boy drooled as they watched. They excitedly squeezed to the side of the stage as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Fu Wei and Chang found a seat on the second floor and ordered more than a dozen bottles of beer. One for each of them. The two clinked their bottles and drank. After having fun with the beauties, Monkey and Snake Boy happily climbed upstairs and sat heavily on the soft sofa. They picked up a bottle of wine and drank. Monkey and Wei clinked their bottles and said, Wei, you're amazing now. You have a rich sister. Snake Boy's ears perked up. I heard that your sister married the president of Shenghao Group. You can just ask them for money to pay off your gambling debts. Why do you have to go out and work yourself? It's so hard. Wei's face was bitter. You think I don't want to, but my sister and brother-in-law are stingy. They're stingy and said that they want me to be independent. Monkey rolled his eyes and laughed sinisterly. Idiot, if they don't want to take the money, you have to find a way to make them bleed. Ad. Hungcha 866. Chapter 354. Monkey was the one with the most ideas among them. To put it bluntly, he was full of tricks. Fu Wei's interest was piqued. Monkey, what idea do you have? Monkey crossed his arms and raised his eyebrows. Kidnapping. Fu Wei was stunned. Kidnapping my sister? That's not a good idea, is it? You're stupid. Monkey slapped him on the head. Your sister lives in the villa and has so many people protecting her. How can we kidnap her? Then who are we kidnapping? It can't be kidnapping my parents, right? Fu Wei touched his head that was hurting from the slap and asked in bewilderment. Snake Boy slapped the table and laughed. Ah Wei, I've already guessed what monkey means. You still don't understand. You're really stupid. Ah Chang also laughed, as if he had already understood Monkey's spirit. Fu Wei looked at the three of them laughing together and suddenly thought of something. You guys aren't talking about kidnapping me, right? Monkey patted him on the shoulder in relief. You finally understand. We will make it look like a kidnapping and get your parents to fork out a large sum of money. If your parents can't fork out the money, they will definitely ask your sister for help. This way, won't the money be in your hands? Fu Wei hurriedly shook his head. No, this isn't good. Monkey was surprised. Why? The three of us are only helping you to pretend to be kidnapping. We won't hurt you or your family. We just want a ransom. Fu Wei still shook his head. He couldn't tell why, but he just felt that it wasn't right. Although he often lied to his parents and asked them for money, he still couldn't do something like pretending to be kidnapping. Chang advised him, Wei, think about it carefully. Didn't you say that work wasn't going well? This is a good way to easily raise money. No, I'll think of another way. If it doesn't work, I'll continue to work hard. Fu Wei picked up the beer and took a big gulp, still not relenting. Monkey rolled his eyes and smiled. Forget it, Chang. Don't try to persuade him anymore. Otherwise, he might think that we have some ideas. Snake Boy punched him in annoyance. Monkey, what nonsense are you talking about? We're all thinking for Wei. What ideas can we have? Snake Boy, don't F** King touch me. Monkey was indignant and wanted to punch back at Snake Boy. Fu Wei hurriedly stopped them. Stop fighting. I know you are doing this for my own good. Good brothers, don't hurt our friendship. Come, let's drink. Stop fooling around. Chang picked up his bottle and clinked it against theirs. Monkey and Snake Boy glared at each other angrily and reluctantly picked up the wine bottle to drink. Fu Wei did not take their words to heart. The next day, he continued to throw himself into the marketing battle. However, the situation was getting more and more serious. The hotels that were interested in buying the software refused to meet with Fu Wei again. He almost broke his legs from running around, facing the supercilious and indifferent eyes of others, but he still didn't get anything. After a month, he didn't sell a set of software and only received a basic salary of a few thousand yuan. Seeing that there were only 2 months left before the deadline with the casino, and the 100,000 yuan was nowhere to be seen, Fu Wei began to panic. At this critical juncture, someone from the casino called him. Wei, there are only 2 months left. How's the money coming along? Fu Wei's tone was not very good. We agreed that within 3 months, you are not allowed to harass me. What is the meaning of this now? The other party sneered. I'm afraid that you will run away. When that time comes, where will I find you? Don't worry, I definitely won't run away. The money I owe you will not be a single cent less. That's good. Hurry up and raise the money. If you dare to trick us, you know how powerful we are. After hanging up the phone, Fu Wei grabbed his hair angrily. Suddenly, a light flashed in his mind. Monkey's suggestion of kidnapping came up, but he quickly suppressed it. No, I can't do this. If sister and brother-in-law find out the truth, they will kill me. His phone suddenly rang again. Fu Wei did not even look at the caller ID. He directly put the phone to his ear and said irritably, "Didn't I say that I will definitely pay you back? Stop harassing me." The other party paused and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm Monkey." Fu Wei laughed dryly. "Monkey, it's you. I thought it was the gang from the casino. Why are you looking for me? It's the weekend. Aren't you resting? Come out with your brothers for a gathering." Fu Wei said dejectedly, "Forget it, I'm not in the mood." "What's wrong? Were you cooked?" "No, it's just that work is not going well." "Alright, you're a man. Don't act like a woman. Isn't it just work that's not going well? Come out and have a few drinks. Forget all your troubles." In the bar, Fu Wei could not help but complain to his brothers. Monkey thought for a while and said, "How about you think about my previous suggestion?" Snake Boy said carelessly, "Monkey, Ah Wei wants to be a good person now. Don't tempt him anymore." Monkey said dejectedly, "I'm being nosy." After a few drinks, Fu Wei's courage was boosted. He slammed the glass on the table. "I'm going all out. I'll do as you say and pretend to kidnap you." The three of them were stunned. Ah Chang patted him on the shoulder. "Ah Wei, have you thought about it?" "I've thought about it. I've had enough of smiling at people every day." Fu Wei was furious when he thought about the anger he had suffered these days. As the saying goes, anger rises from the heart and evil grows from the side. This was the true portrayal of him now. Monkey patted Fu Wei on the shoulder and said, "That's more like a man. Ah Wei, don't worry. We'll definitely help you." Fu Wei's gaze swept across the three of them and nodded gratefully. "Good brothers, I'm relying on you guys. Don't tell anyone about this. If my sister knows the truth, she'll definitely kill me. Don't worry, we know what we're doing." Snake Boy patted his chest and promised. The four of them did as they said. They gathered in Ah Chang's rented house and discussed how to carry out this kidnapping while smoking. The commander-in-chief, Monkey, touched his chin and said, "First of all, we have to find a hiding place. In order to make it real, Ah Wei will have to live there and someone will have to watch over him." Ah Chang thought for a moment and said, "I know there's an abandoned factory in the suburbs. I'll go with Ah Wei." As he said that, he laughed. "I look like a vicious kidnapper, don't I? Okay, I'll leave this to you." Monkey turned his gaze to Snake Boy. "Snake Boy, you'll be in charge of contacting Ah Wei's parents and monitoring their every move." "No problem." Monkey added, "I'll be in charge of the transaction. When the time comes, let them send someone to deliver the ransom to the factory." Fu Wei raised his hand. "What if my parents call the police?" "Of course, we have to threaten them in advance. They're not allowed to call the police. If they do, they'll kill the hostage. What if they're not threatened and call the police?" Monkey and the other two looked at each other. Obviously, the three of them had not considered this problem. Snake Boy coughed and said, "I'll be in charge of monitoring your family. If they call the police, we'll immediately cancel the operation." "Yes, that's right. If we're really that unlucky, we'll have to cancel the operation to avoid falling into the hands of the cops." Fu Wei scratched his head in annoyance. "I still have a question. Why do you want someone to deliver the ransom to the factory? What if they bring the police over?" Monkey smiled proudly. "Even if they bring the police to the factory, they won't be able to catch us because before that, Ah Chang will have already evacuated with you. I'll also hide in the distance and make sure that they've left before going to get the money." Snake Boy said, "I think it's best to get your mother to send the money over." Why? Your mother's legs aren't good. Even if she discovers Monkey's whereabouts, she won't be able to catch up with Monkey. Fu Wei frowned. That's true. But Monkey, you can't hurt my mother. That's for sure. We're doing this for money. Why would we hurt your mother? Okay, then it's settled. The four of them gathered again and discussed some details. Finally, they went back to their respective homes. 2 days later, Fu Wei was kidnapped as expected. That night, he didn't return home at midnight. Xia Ling called his cell phone, but it was turned off. At first, she thought that he was fooling around with his friends again and didn't take it to heart. When she couldn't contact him the next day, she panicked. At that moment, an unknown number called home. Auntie, your son is now in my hands. You're not allowed to call the police. Give me a ransom of 200,000 yuan within a day. Otherwise, you'll never see your son again. Xia Ling almost fainted. Her fingers gripped the phone tightly and she said anxiously, please, let my son go. We don't have any money to give you. Don't bargain with me. If you don't have money, why would you live in such a high-end neighborhood like the Jiangnan River? To tell you the truth, I've been watching you for a long time. Xia Ling forced herself to calm down and said, how do I know that my son is really in your hands? Snake Boy was prepared. He pressed the button on the recording pen and placed it near the receiver of the public phone. Xia Ling heard Fu Wei's recording. Who are you? Why did you kidnap me? Ah! Don't hurt me. Dad, Mom, save me. Fu Wei's heart-wrenching screams came from the phone. Xia Ling cried out anxiously, don't hurt my son. Please, don't hurt him. If you don't give me the 200,000 yuan within 24 hours, I'll cut off your son's fingers one by one. No, don't hurt my son. I'll send it. I'll find a way to get the 200,000 yuan. Now, hurry up and think of a way to get the money. I'll call you at 2 in the afternoon and tell you where to send the money. I'm warning you, if you dare to call the police, you'll have to collect your son's corpse. Without waiting for Xia Ling to speak, Snake Boy hung up the phone and walked out of a street phone booth not far from the neighborhood. There was a strange smile on his lips. Welfare, Xinwu 799. Chapter 355. Xia Ling was about to break down. She quickly called Fu Qinghai back from the park and called Xia Dong to explain the situation. Xia Dong heard that the situation was serious and notified Bai Li Han on the way to the Jiangnan Shuigan district. In less than an hour, the family gathered to discuss countermeasures. Knowing that the kidnappers only asked for $200,000 and did not ask for too much, Bai Li Han analyzed that the kidnappers were probably just gangsters. As long as their ransom was met, they should be able to guarantee Fu Wei's safety. Bai Li Han said in a low voice, Mom, don't worry. I'll get someone to withdraw $200,000 from the bank right now. Even so, Xia Ling was still very worried. Firstly, she was worried about Fu Wei's safety. Secondly, she was worried that the kidnappers would find out about the relationship between Fu Wei and Bai Li Han and use this as an opportunity to increase the ransom or threaten Bailey's family. Soon, Lu Zihao sent $200,000 in cash over in a password-protected box. Ahu and Abeo came along with him. The two of them brought some high-tech equipment to track phone signals. The family sat in the living room, waiting for the kidnappers' call. Ring ring ring, the ear-piercing ringtone of the phone rang in the silent living room. Bai Li Han reached out his hand and gestured for everyone not to answer the call. After Abeo nodded at him, indicating that they were ready, he pressed the speaker button. It was Snakey's voice. Auntie, you have to deliver the ransom alone to Yangon Machinery Factory in the suburbs at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I'm warning you, you can only deliver it alone. If I find out that you've called the police or that someone else is following you, I will kill your son. Xia Ling looked up at Bai Li Han. Bai Li Han pointed at her leg and then pointed at his nose. She immediately understood and said, "My leg is not convenient, so I might delay the transaction. Can you send someone else to deliver the ransom?" Snaky refused decisively. "No, you can try if you don't want to see your son again." Okay, I got it. I'll leave now." Xia Ling deliberately delayed and said, "I want to know if my son is safe now." "He is safe now. Before we receive the ransom, we will not harm him. I want to talk to my son. Cut the crap and give me the money. Otherwise, I'll kill him immediately." Snake Boy was now in a public phone booth not far from their neighborhood. There was no way for Xia Ling to talk to Fu Wei, so he threatened her fiercely and hung up the phone with a bang. Abeo pointed at a small red dot on the computer screen and said, "Young master, I've locked onto the target. It's at a public phone booth near the residential area." Bailey Han's gaze turned cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Ahu, go downstairs and search. Be careful not to alert the enemy." Ahu responded and immediately went downstairs. Xia Ling stood up from the sofa. "I'll send the money to the kidnappers right now." Bailey Han stopped her. "Mom, don't worry. I'll arrange this." On the other side, in an abandoned factory. With a cigarette in his mouth, Fu Wei sat on a chair and played poker with Ah Chong. "I won again." "Ah Chong, why are you so absent-minded today?" Ah Chong threw the poker cards on the chair, spat out the cigarette butt in his mouth, and crushed it with his foot. "Stop playing poker. It's about time. I'll tie you up first and put on a show." Fu Wei frowned. "There's no need. We'll be retreating soon anyway. It's better to put on a show. If something unexpected happens, we won't be flustered." Ah Chong picked up the rope that he had prepared and walked to his side. "Come on, brother. It's been hard on you. All right, for the money, I have to suffer a little." Fu Wei put his hands behind his back and put his wrists together. "Hey, Ah Chong, be gentler. Don't tie me up so tightly." Ah Chong pursed his lips. With a sullen face, he tied his hands up forcefully and turned a deaf ear to his cries. After tying him up, his strong arms grabbed Fu Wei's arm tightly and he said in a deep voice, "Let's go. We'll change our position." Fu Wei refused and muttered, "Loosen the rope for me. My wrists hurt." Ah Chong's eyebrows showed impatience. "It's just for a while. Bear with it." He roughly grabbed Fu Wei's collar and dragged him out of the factory. "Let's go. It's getting late. If your mother comes early, things will be troublesome." "Hey, Ah Chong, be fucking gentler." Fu Wei was dragged by Ah Chong to a white van parked outside the factory. Monkey, who was sitting in the driver's seat, jumped out of the car and patted Ah Chong's shoulder. With a strange smile, he said, "Ah Chong, I'll leave Ah Wei to you. I'm now in charge of welcoming Ah Wei's mother." Ah Chong nodded and stuffed Fu Wei into the front passenger seat. He jumped into the driver's seat and stepped on the accelerator. The van kicked up a cloud of dust and sped away. The two of them did not go to the agreed place. Instead, they went to the seaside of Repulse Bay. "Ah Chong, what are we doing here?" Fu Wei looked around in confusion. This was obviously a pier. There were many fishermen's boats docked at the seaside. There were also speedboats and ships. "You'll know soon enough." Ah Chong expressionlessly opened the car door and pulled him out of the front passenger seat. Ah Chong took off his t-shirt and covered his tied wrists. He pulled his arm and walked towards the pier. "Hey, Ah Chong, wait a minute. What are we doing so far away? Tell me clearly. If you don't tell me clearly, I won't go with you." Fu Wei stopped and refused to move. There were many people busy at the pier. No one had the time to pay attention to the two of them. Ah Chong's face was stiff and his tone was somewhat unhappy. "Ah Wei, what do you mean by this? You were the one who begged us to help you put on this show. Now, with your attitude, are you suspecting me? Fu Wei chuckled. I'm not suspecting you. I just think it's strange. Don't keep me in suspense. Why are we here? Ah, Chang sighed. Alright, I'll tell you. We agreed to move to my rented house, but I was worried that your mother would play tricks and bring the police here. If they catch Monkey, they will quickly find out where we are, so I changed my mind and brought you to the seaside. Fu Wei was stunned. What about Monkey? If Monkey is really caught, we'll say that it's just a joke. There's no kidnapping at all. It's very simple to clear Monkey's name. Ah Chang did not want to talk about this topic anymore. He patted him on the shoulder. Let's go. There's no point in us standing here. I've already rented a boat. Let's go sit on the boat and wait for their good news. Although Fu Wei still had doubts in his heart, he didn't think too much about it. He followed Ah Chang onto a fishing boat. After all, he had been brothers with Ah Chang and Monkey for 2 years. He had never thought that they would harm him. Fu Wei had just stepped into the cabin when he saw a very beautiful middle-aged woman sitting inside. He was greatly surprised and was about to ask Ah Chang when he suddenly felt a pain in the back of his head. His vision went black and he fell to the ground with a plop. Ah Chang's right hand formed a palm as he glanced at Ah Wei, who was unconscious on the ground. He slowly withdrew his right hand and said to the middle-aged woman, I've already brought Ah Wei over as you requested. I don't want to participate in what happens next. The woman smiled. Alright, according to the agreement, I'll pay you half of the money first. After your friend brings Xia Ling over, I'll pay you the other half. Her fair and slender fingers held a check and handed it to him. Ah Chang took the check from her hand and quickly glanced at the numbers on it before stuffing it into his pocket. He didn't even look at Fu Wei, who was lying on the ground, as he turned and left the fishing boat. A minute later, a woman wearing jeans and a white shirt entered the cabin. She glanced at Fu Wei and said, Madam, what do we do now? Ah Xiao, put him in a corner and tie his legs. Then, let old Xiao drive the fishing boat out to sea. After Monkey brings Xia Ling to the seaside, tell him the coordinates. This woman was Su Murong. She leisurely leaned back in her chair and calmly commanded. Just in case, their boat left the dock first. After confirming that Xia Ling had come alone to deliver the ransom, she would let Monkey escort her to see her. Ah Xiao found a rope from the cabin and tied Fu Wei's legs. Then, like throwing trash, she threw him into a corner and said to Su Murong, Madam, I'll let old Xiao drive the boat now. Su Murong nodded. Inside the cockpit sat a muscular man. His face was cold and his body exuded a murderous aura. He was old Xiao, a retired Special Forces soldier from Vietnam. He was now Su Murong's bodyguard. The fishing boat quickly left the harbor and headed towards the vast sea. At this time, Xia Ling had already taken a taxi and arrived at the outskirts of the city. It took her a lot of effort to find the abandoned factory. The factory's iron gate was open and weeds were overgrown. She limped into the factory with her walking stick. Because she was worried about Fu Wei's situation, her eyes were filled with anxiety. The factory was empty. There was not a single person in sight. There were only 2 chairs, 2 empty mineral water bottles, and some bread crumbs and bread bags. Xia Ling hurriedly looked around with her walking stick and shouted, Ah Wei, where are you? There was no response in the huge factory. Only her echoes could be heard. Ah Wei, where are you? Xia Ling was anxious. She refused to give up. She limped around, looking for traces of Ah Wei and the kidnappers. Suddenly, a young and thin man walked in from the factory entrance. He stared coldly at Xia Ling and said, Stop looking. There's no one else here other than you and me. Attention, Xinwu 799. Chapter 356. Xia Ling hugged the suitcase tightly and took a few steps back. Who are you? The skinny man was none other than Monkey. He had been lying in ambush around the factory and only came out to meet Xia Ling after confirming that she was alone. He sneered. I'm the one who kidnapped your son. Come with me, I'll take you to see your son. Xia Ling did not hesitate. She followed Monkey for a few hundred meters and got into a black Volkswagen Santana at a secluded intersection. Monkey was not only ruthless but also meticulous. He was worried that Xia Ling would secretly call the police and get them to lie in ambush on the way out of the factory. Hence, he deliberately chose a different road from the one Xia Ling had taken. He drove the car through the middle of the abandoned factory. Half an hour later, the car was on the road to the beach. The sky was blue and the water was clear. The sun had already set in the west. The fishermen were returning one after another and the sailors were busy moving the goods onto the ships. The harbor was bustling with activity. It was a scene of prosperity. Monkey brought Xia Ling to a fishing boat and lifted his chin. Get on the boat. Xia Ling sized up the fishing boat and took a step back with the suitcase. Where's Ah Wei? I want to see Ah Wei. Cut the crap and get on the boat. Monkey grabbed her arm and dragged her onto the boat. She was forced into the cabin. The boat did not look big but the cabin was different. There were a few seats and 2 men. One was Monkey's partner, Snake Boy, and the other was the bodyguard Su Murong had sent to keep an eye on them, Ah Meng. Ah Chang did not appear. Ah Meng was a burly man. Unlike Old Owl, he was not a retired soldier but an international mercenary. His skills were also top-notch. He waved his hand and gestured for Monkey to tie up Xia Ling's hands and feet. Monkey held the rope and approached Xia Ling step by step with an evil smile on his face. Xia Ling's face was pale. She hugged the suitcase and stumbled back. What do you want? I've brought the money. Please return my son to me. Hee, auntie, you'll see your son soon. Monkey forced her into a corner and shook the rope in his hand. I advise you to cooperate. Otherwise, you'll be the one suffering. Xia Ling suddenly stuck her head out of the window and shouted, help. Snaky grabbed her hair and forcefully pulled her in. He said fiercely, Auntie, even if you shout until your throat breaks, no one will come to save you because our ship has already started. The fishing boat had already left the coast and was sailing towards the vast sea. When Xia Ling poked her head out, she realized that there were no other boats around the fishing boat. She gritted her teeth and said, What do you want? You just need to come with us. Monkey snatched the password-protected box from her arms and threw it to Snake Boy. Then, ignoring her struggles, he tied her wrists together and tied her legs. Xia Ling's hands and feet were tied. She sat on a chair and glared angrily at Monkey and the others. Monkey's ferocious expression when he faced Xia Ling was replaced by a flattering smile. Brother Meng, we've brought her here. When can we get the other half of the reward? Ah Meng looked at him expressionlessly. When you see Madam, she will naturally give it to you. Ah Xiu sent the coordinates of their ship, and Ah Meng and the others sailed in that direction. After sailing for close to an hour, they arrived at a deserted island. There was already a fishing boat docked by the beach. It was the same boat that Su Murong and the others had come on. After the boat docked, Monkey and Snake Boy each grabbed Xia Ling's arms and dragged her off the boat onto the deserted island. Not far from the beach, Su Murong and the others stood in the wind. Fu Wei had already awakened and was standing beside Su Murong. His hands and feet were tied and his mouth was sealed with black tape. When he saw Xia Ling, his eyes flashed with a complicated light and he made muffled sounds from his throat. Ah Wei, Xia Ling shouted excitedly. She ignored her crippled legs and jumped towards Fu Wei. No one stopped her. After all, they were heading towards Su Murong. Xia Ling had only jumped about 10 steps and was already panting. However, when she saw her son who was dozens of meters away, her eyes were resolute. She did not stop and continued to jump towards him. Her hair was disheveled and her face was flushed. Sweat broke out on her forehead. As her hands were tied, she could not maintain her balance and almost fell to the ground a few times. Fu Wei's eyes stared straight at his mother. The guilt in his heart was like a flood that had broken through a dam, drowning him. His nose turned sour, tears welled up in his eyes, and a painful whimper came from his throat. Xia Ling's pathetic state pleased Su Murong. She laughed out loud. Xia Ling, look at you now. You're like a stray dog struggling at death's door. You still have the nerve to live in this world. What a disgrace. Fu Wei was furious. He turned around and glared at Su Murong. The tears in his eyes had not dried, but they were already burning with anger. Little brat, what are you looking at? You'll be in for it later. Su Murong sneered and raised his foot to kick Fu Wei's knee. Fu Wei's legs went soft and he almost knelt on the ground, but he gritted his teeth and held on. His legs trembled as he slowly straightened his body. What's the matter? You're starting to have a backbone now. It's too late. Su Murong kicked him again. This time, she kicked the back of his leg. She was wearing leather boots and they were tough and hard. When she kicked his leg, he felt a piercing pain. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, but he still clenched his teeth and held on. After failing to subdue Fu Wei with 2 kicks, Su Murong flew into a rage out of humiliation. I'll beat you to death, you little bastard. She punched and kicked him to vent her anger. Fu Wei was beaten black and blue by her, but he still refused to admit defeat. His stubborn and hateful gaze almost burned a hole in her body. At this moment, Xia Ling was only 2 meters away from them. She shouted angrily, Su Murong, stop. Su Murong slowly retracted her hand and turned to look at the ashen-faced Xia Ling. Her eyes were filled with hatred as she said coldly, Xia Ling, since you and your son are so close, I'll fulfill your wish and let you go to the netherworld together. When Snake Boy heard this, he panicked. They had been bribed by Su Murong. She had said that she would not take Ah Wei and Xia Ling's lives. They did not expect her to change her mind. He stammered, Madam, killing people isn't good, right? Su Murong's expression turned cold. Her gaze was like a sharp knife that pierced Snake Boy. Monkey hurriedly covered his mouth and laughed, Madam, my friend is just joking. Since it's a deal, you can do whatever you want with them since they're in your hands. Su Murong's expression softened and the killing intent in her eyes dissipated. She turned to look at Ashio. Ashio, give them the other check. Monkey took the check from Ashio and quickly checked it before stuffing it into his pocket. Su Murong stared at him and Snake Boy and said coldly, I've always believed that the dead are the ones who keep secrets the best. However, I'm also a person of my word. Since the deal is done, we're strangers. I believe you know what to do. Monkey pressed Snake Boy's head and both of them nodded. He laughed and said, Of course, of course. After we leave this place, we won't remember anything. Su Murong looked at them deeply and finally ordered, Ah Meng, give them a boat. Snake Boy's eyes moved. He wanted to say something, but Monkey had already pulled him away quickly, ignoring Fu Wei's desperate and angry gaze. A fishing boat slowly sailed away. The sea breeze carried a fishy smell. It was silent all around. Su Murong glanced at Xia Ling and Fu Wei and smiled coldly. Now that there's only the few of us left, I'll let you and your son know what it means to regret being human. Xia Ling glared at her angrily. Why? Why are you doing this to us? Su Murong shrugged, her beautiful face cold. It's simple. You're Xia Dong's closest people. If I kill you, she'll feel worse than death. Xia Ling's eyes were fierce and she wanted to pounce on her and bite her throat. Su Murong, you be *tch. More than 20 years ago, you stole my husband and wanted to burn me to death. Even if I die in your hands today and become a malicious spirit, I won't let you off. Su Murong laughed wildly. After a while, she stopped laughing and walked slowly to Xia Ling. She stretched out her slender fingers and pinched Xia Ling's chin tightly. Her lips curled into a sinister smile. You're not stupid after all. You know that I deliberately arranged the fire. It's a pity that I let you live for another 20 years. Why? You already have Xiaozhensheng. Why do you still want to harm me? I'm not a threat to you at all. Su Murong's fingers tightened and pinched Xia Ling's chin. She sneered. If you want to blame someone, blame that useless man, Xiaozhensheng. Since we're already divorced, he still comes running to you every other day. Does he think I'm an idiot? Even if I don't love him, I can't tolerate my man thinking about another woman. Her fingers pinched Xia Ling so hard that she had difficulty breathing. Her face was pale as she said hatefully, since you don't love him, why do you want to destroy our family? Su Murong leaned close to her ear and laughed eerily. Since you're going to die anyway, I don't mind telling you this secret. Because I'm pregnant before marriage, I need to find a sucker. An honest man like Xia Zhensheng is just right. Xia Ling was shocked. Su Xingqian isn't Xia Zhensheng's child. Su Murong laughed mockingly. Of course not. How could I give birth to that useless man's child? After saying that, she suddenly flung Xia Ling's chin away. Because she used a lot of strength, Xia Ling fell and lay on the beach pathetically. She shouted hysterically, Su Murong, you're too heartless. There's something even more heartless. You and your son will see it soon. Su Murong smiled and clapped her hands. Old Xiao, Ah Meng, bring the two of them to the beach. Ah Xiao, bring that thing over. Add, Xinwu 799. Chapter 357. On the clear seaside, the sound of the waves crashing against the sand could be heard. Xia Ling and Fu Wei were escorted to the seaside, less than 20 centimeters away from the water. Su Murong's lips curled into a cruel smile. Old Xiao, tear off the tape on that little bastard's mouth. It would be a pity if she couldn't hear his screams later. She looked at the ropes on their legs and said, untie the ropes on your legs as well. This island was extremely desolate and there were only a few of them. Xia Ling and her son would not be able to escape from their clutches. With the ropes on their legs untied, the scene of their struggle became even more exciting. After the tape on Fu Wei's mouth was removed, the first thing he said was, Mom, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Xia Ling sighed. Don't say it, Ah Wei. I don't blame you. No, Mom, I want to say it. I'm afraid that if I don't say it now, I won't have the chance anymore. Fu Wei's eyes were red as he choked out, it's all my fault. In order to pay off my gambling debts, I came up with a rotten idea with my friends. I pretended to be kidnapped by them and then received the ransom. I didn't expect that they would betray me. Mom, I've implicated you. I'm really sorry. Xia Ling shook her head. Just as she was about to speak, Su Murong suddenly laughed out loud. Fu Wei, oh Fu Wei, you really have a pig's brain. Let me tell you, this was all a trap set by me. Fu Wei's eyes widened in disbelief. After a while, he reacted. You mean, Ah Chang and the others were already bribed by you and deliberately instigated me to carry out this kidnapping? Su Murong sneered. Not only that, I also bribed your potential customers to not buy your software and forced you into a dead end. You woman, you're too despicable. Fu Wei angrily rushed towards Su Murong. Unfortunately, before he could get close to her body, he was already knocked to the ground by old Xiao. The skin on his lips was broken and fresh blood flowed out. Axiu carried an iron bucket and jumped down from the cabin of the fishing boat. She placed the iron bucket on the beach and saw that there was an iron cover on top of it. It seemed like there was some ferocious animal inside as it banged against the walls of the bucket. Su Murong raised her eyebrows, her eyes cold. Ah Xiao, open it. Axiu nodded and carefully lifted the lid. Xia Ling and Fu Wei couldn't help but look over. There were dozens of flat fish in the iron bucket, each about 10 centimeters long. Their backs were dark green, and their bellies were bright red. It seemed that they had been cooped up in the iron bucket for too long. Once they were able to breathe fresh air, they immediately flipped over, splashing water everywhere. There were also a few fish that jumped out of the barrel and rolled back into the barrel. In those few seconds, everyone noticed that their teeth were as sharp as saws. Xia Ling and Fu Wei looked at each other. They didn't know why Su Murong had asked someone to bring a bucket of fish over. Su Murong raised her eyebrows and said calmly, "These fish are called piranhas. Their teeth are unusually sharp. It's said that they can bite off 16 cubic centimeters of meat in one bite. With this bucket of fish, you'll be reduced to bones in less than half an hour." Fu Wei trembled, his eyes filled with fear as he stared at the piranhas in the bucket. Xia Ling's eyes narrowed. If one looked closely, they would notice that her gaze was calm and rational. It was completely different from the gaze of a loving mother who was worried about her son. However, Su Murong didn't notice any of this. She was still gloating over the piranhas. "I specially prepared this for you and your son. Once you've become a pile of bones and rot in this desolate place, no one will ever find you." She glanced at Old Owl and Ah Meng and ordered, "Pour the piranhas into the sea, then throw them both in." Old Owl nodded. He lifted the metal bucket and took 2 steps back, away from the water. Then, he slowly tipped the bucket and poured all the piranhas into the water. After the piranhas entered the water, they didn't swim away immediately. Instead, they circled around in the shallow water, as if waiting for something. Old Owl was prepared. He took out a dagger and cut his finger. He squeezed 2 drops of blood onto the water. The smell of blood spread in the water. The piranhas seemed to have gone crazy. They rolled, flopped, and hissed at each other. He did this to lure the piranhas to stay where they were with his blood. "All right, it's your turn now." Ah Meng carried Xia Ling with one hand and grabbed Fu Wei with the other. He pushed them into the water. Fu Wei shouted, "Hold on." Su Murong made a gesture and Ah Meng paused. Su Murong said coldly, "Do you have any last words?" Fu Wei said anxiously, "Let my mother go." Su Murong crossed her arms and said calmly, "Impossible." "Ah Meng, continue." Ah Meng lifted Xia Ling first and pushed her into the water. Seeing that her body was getting closer and closer to the water, the piranhas seemed to have smelled the scent of humans. They turned restlessly and a few fish jumped out of the water. They opened their mouths and bit her cheeks with their sharp teeth. "No!" Fu Wei screamed. He was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. His legs trembled as he shouted, "Please, let my mother go." In the blink of an eye, Xia Ling threw her head back and slammed it into Ah Meng's nose. Her wrists tightened and the rope broke with a bang. She quickly grabbed Ah Meng's hand that was on her shoulder and threw him over her shoulder into the sea. All of this happened too quickly. It only took a few seconds. When old Xiao and Ushio reacted and wanted to help Ah Meng, the school of piranhas had already bitten his body. "Ah, ah!" Ah Meng's shrill screams filled the air. In just a few seconds, Su Murong was already subdued by the police and handcuffed. She was like a defeated rooster, losing all her arrogance. Old Xiao and Ushio had already been shot dead. They lay on the beach with blood gushing out and did not move at all. Although the piranha on Ah Meng's body had been dealt with, a lot of its flesh and blood had been devoured. White bones could be seen in many parts of its body and it had already fainted. Bailey Han was the first to jump down from the helicopter. He then helped the real Xia Ling and Fu Qinghai down. "Dad, Mom," Fu Wei was so guilty that he quickly threw himself into their arms and burst into tears. "Dad, Mom, I was wrong. I won't mess around anymore. I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Xia Ling and her husband hugged Fu Wei and could not help but wipe their tears. Leng Shui walked up to Bailey Han, took out a recording pen from her pocket and said, "Young master, this is the recording of Su Murong's confession." "Very good. Thank you for your hard work." Bailey Han took the recording pen. Officer Lee, who was leading the team, ordered his subordinates to take Su Murong onto the speedboat. Then he ordered a bomb to be dropped in the shallow water where the piranha were. All the piranha were killed by the explosion to prevent them from destroying the ecological balance of the water. Before Officer Lee left, he greeted Bailey Han. Bailey Han gave him the recording pen to use as evidence against Su Murong. Xia Ling and her husband thanked Leng Shui profusely for saving their son's life. Leng Shui smiled and said, "You're welcome. This is my job." Ad. Hung Cha 866. Chapter 358. It turned out that when Snake Boy called Xia Ling to inform her of the address to deliver the ransom, his phone signal was tracked by Bailey Han's men. Bao chased him downstairs and found him suspicious. He followed him all the way and eavesdropped on his conversation with Monkey. He learned that there was another mastermind behind the kidnapping. On the other side, Bailey Han asked Leng Shui to disguise herself as Xia Ling and deliver the ransom on her behalf. Leng Shui pretended to cooperate with the kidnappers and hid a tracking device in her shoes. While tracking Leng Shui's coordinates, Bailey Han asked the police for help to bring the mastermind behind the kidnapping to justice. As for Monkey and the other two, they could not escape the punishment of the law. This was a battle that was won beautifully. After this incident, Fu Wei realized that people in the underworld were sinister. On the surface, people called him brothers, but in reality, they would not hesitate to betray him for their own benefits. He completely cut off contact with his bad friends and decided to turn over a new leaf. That night, the family celebrated at Xia Ling's house. As Fu Wei's savior, Leng Shui was also invited. It was not the first time that she had eaten with Xia Dong's family, but this time she felt a little uncomfortable because everyone treated her as a hero and was extremely enthusiastic about her. Fu Wei even solemnly toasted her to thank her for saving his life. After that, he toasted Bailey Han and Xia Dong. He raised his glass with both hands and said sincerely, "Sister, brother-in-law, the people I want to thank the most are you two. When I was at my worst, you didn't abandon me. You introduced me to jobs and helped me change my image. This time, you even saved my life. I swear, I will be a good person in the future and will not let you down." Xia Dong was so happy and excited that she momentarily forgot that she couldn't drink. Just as she raised her wine glass, Bailey Han had already pressed down on her hand. He smiled and said, "Ah Wei, we are all very happy that you can understand. Your sister can't drink, so I will drink on her behalf." He raised his head and drank the wine in his glass. Then he raised Xia Dong's glass and slowly drank it. Xia Dong quickly picked up some food with her chopsticks and fed it to him. In the end, Fu Wei poured a drink for Fu Qinghai and Xia Ling. Before he said anything, his eyes were already filled with tears. Seeing the tenderness in his parents' eyes, his heart was filled with guilt. "Dad, Mom, your son is unfilial. I have made you worry for so many years. I am really sorry. I will not do anything stupid in the future. I will not let you down." Fu Qinghai and Xia Ling were also teary-eyed. They thought that they would not see the day their son became sensible. They did not expect him to wake up. They were so excited that they kept praising him. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, the whole family was joyous and harmonious. Fu Wei looked around at his family members. His eyes flickered as if he had something to say but was too embarrassed to say it. Bailey Han's eyes were sharp and he was the first to notice his abnormality. The corners of his lips curled up as he said, "Ah Wei, do you have something to say to us?" Fu Wei coughed and blushed. "Brother-in-law, I have an idea that I want to discuss with you." "Okay, go ahead." Bailey Han's expression was gentle. He moved his lips and clenched his fists. He made up his mind and said, "Dad, Mom, Sis, brother-in-law, I want to go back to school." He lowered his head uneasily. He did not dare to look at everyone's expression. Bailey Han sat next to him. He reached out and patted him on the shoulder. This is a good thing. As long as you make up your mind, we will support you. Fu Wei suddenly looked up. He looked around in disbelief and found that his family was looking at him with smiles. Obviously, they agreed with his suggestion. Fu Qinghai said happily, Wei, don't worry and go back to school. Your mom and I still have some savings. It is enough to pay off our gambling debts. Fu Wei said seriously, Dad, Mom, thank you for supporting me. However, I want to pay off my gambling debts myself. I want to work for the next 2 months and use my own hands to make up for the mess I made. Good, good. As expected of my son. You have learned how to be responsible. Very good. Fu Qinghai was so excited that he could not control himself. The whole family was immersed in high spirits. On the other side, the Su family was shrouded in a gloomy fog. Su Xingchen could not believe that her mother was arrested. Since she was young, her mother was like a goddess in her eyes. She was so perfect that no one could blaspheme her. How could she fall into the hands of Bailey Han and be arrested by the police? She was angry and could not believe it. She vented all her anger on the items in the room. She broke the computer, smashed the mirror and vase, and roared loudly. Xia Zhenqing still didn't know that Su Xingchen wasn't his biological daughter. Although he had many complaints towards his wife, towards Su Xingchen, he still doted on her like a loving father. When she was angry, he clearly knew that he would be scolded by her, but he still walked into her room. The room was a mess. Su Xingchen was like a crazy woman. Her hair was disheveled. She held her head with both hands and screamed. Xia Zhenqing approached her and said softly, Xingchen, don't be like this. I don't want you to care. Before he could finish his words, Su Xingchen suddenly pushed him away. She stared at him with resentment, it's all your fault. You're too useless. If it was my godfather, he would definitely think of a way to save mommy. How could I have a father like you? Her words were like a sharp knife, ruthlessly stabbing into Xia Zhenqing's heart. Blood flowed out. His face was pale. Like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind, lonely and miserable. His expression was sluggish. His body was stiff for nearly a minute. Finally, he comforted himself. His daughter only suffered a blow and was emotionally unstable. He should not be so calculative. His lips moved with difficulty and said, Xingchen, I will hire the best lawyer for your mommy. Now, you should eat something first. Don't starve. I'm not hungry. Get out. I don't want to talk to you. Su Xingchen pointed at the door and hysterically shouted, a useless man like you is not fit to be my father. Xia Zhenqing's legs felt like they were filled with lead. He held his heart that was full of holes and walked out of her room step by step. Everything happened too suddenly. Other than knowing that Su Murong was suspected of kidnapping Fu Wei and was charged with intentional homicide, he did not know the details of the situation. He slumped against the back of the sofa and held his forehead with one hand. In an instant, he looked like he had aged 10 years. The next day, Xia Zhenqing went to the detention center. He wanted to meet with Su Murong, but Su Murong refused to meet with him. Later, he went to the police station and requested to meet with Captain Li, who arrested Su Murong. He tried to get more details of the case from him. Captain Li did not hide anything. He roughly described the situation. In the end, he vaguely mentioned the contents of the recording pen, including Su Murong's order to set the fire and her pregnancy before marriage. Finally, he said, although we have concrete evidence, Su Murong did not plead guilty. Xia Zhenqing could no longer hear what he said in the end. His mind was filled with thoughts of Su Murong setting the fire and the fact that Su Xingchen was not his biological daughter. He did not know how he walked out of the police station. His head was heavy and his feet were light. His ears were filled with ear-piercing mocking laughter. He was like a walking corpse. Unknowingly, he walked to the road. A car roared and sped over. A hand pulled him over. Uncle? Are you okay? Old man, do you want to die? He could not hear the concerned questions of the passers-by and the angry curses of the driver. His vision turned black and his legs gave way. He fell to the ground with a plop. It was already late at night. Xia Ling did not expect to be woken up by Xia Zhensheng's call at this time. His voice sounded tired and weary. Ah Ling, I'm very sorry. I didn't know Su Murong had done so many terrible things. Xia Ling looked at her husband who was sleeping soundly beside her. She got up from the bed and walked to the living room. You already know. Xia Zhensheng suddenly burst into tears. He said intermittently, I know everything. She was the one who set the fire. Ah Ling, Xingchen is not my daughter. Tell me, why am I so stupid? I'm so useless. Yesterday, when they returned from the deserted island, Ling Shui had already told them everything about how she had induced Su Murong to confess to the crime. Therefore, Xia Ling already knew that Xia Zhensheng was not lying. It was indeed Su Murong who had forced him to marry her. The hatred in her heart for Xia Zhensheng dissipated a little. Hearing how sad he was, Xia Ling felt a little conflicted. She hesitated for a moment and said, It's not that you're useless. It's just that Su Murong is too cunning, I'm sorry. I've let you and Xia down. I've failed my whole life. Ah Ling, if there's an afterlife, I want to be your husband again. I will never betray you again. I want to be with you for the rest of my life and grow old together. Xia Zhensheng's heart-wrenching cries traveled to Xia Ling's ears through the phone. She suddenly panicked as if something bad was about to happen. She asked anxiously, Xia Zhensheng, where are you right now? On the roof of the hospital. Ah Ling, help me tell Xia that I'm not a good father. I've let her down. Xia Ling's pupils shrank. Her face was filled with horror. Even her voice changed. What are you doing on the roof of the hospital? Don't do anything stupid. He began to sob again. I don't have the face to live anymore. Ah Ling, I'll find you in my next life, Xia Zhensheng, Xia Ling shouted. You haven't paid back what you owe me and Xia. Don't you think it's too easy for you to die now? I know. That's why I'll pay you back in my next life. Shut up. You've already harmed us for our entire lives. Do you want to harm us in our next lives? If you're really sorry, come to my house right now and beg for my forgiveness. I can't do it, Ah Ling. Let's meet again in our next lives. Attention, Xinwu 799. Chapter 359. Xia Zhensheng's voice was filled with despair and disgust for this world. Xia Ling wanted to rush to his side immediately to stop him from committing suicide. She yelled anxiously and painfully, Xia Zhensheng, I'm begging you. Don't do anything stupid. Do you know why I survived when I was so badly burned? It was because I had faith in myself. I was worried about Xia. You've only suffered a small blow now. Why don't you turn around and look? Xia and I are still here. Her voice was choked with sobs. She gritted her teeth and said clearly, Xia Zhensheng, I forgive you. I really forgive you. Xia has forgiven you too. Don't be impulsive and don't do anything stupid. Let Xia call you dad again, okay? The person on the other end of the phone did not make a sound. Only the sound of suppressed sobs could be heard. Xia Ling softened her voice and said, Zhensheng, our family has been separated for too long. Let's sit together and untie each other. No matter what happened in the past, we will always be a family. The sobs on the other end of the phone turned into loud cries. The sound of heartbreak made Xia Ling's tears fall like rain. She choked and said, Zhensheng, actually, when I found out the truth, I didn't hate you anymore. You know, I'm just a softie at heart. I couldn't bring myself to tell you. Actually, I'm very grateful to you. You sacrificed a lot to protect Xia and me. Jinsheng, even if the whole world abandoned you, even if the whole world let you down, you still have Xia and me. Although I'm no longer your wife, I'm still your family. Do you have the heart to abandon us again? Do you have the heart to abandon your cute little grandson? The sobs gradually subsided and his emotions seemed to have stabilized. Xia Ling asked softly, Jinsheng, which hospital are you in now? I want to see you. Xia Jinsheng was silent for a long time. Central Hospital. Okay, wait for me there. I'll be right there. When Xia Ling ended the call, she realized that Fu Qinghai had already woken up and was standing at the door of the living room. She quickly explained, Old Fu, it was Xia Jinsheng who called. I was afraid that he would do something stupid, so, I understand, you don't have to explain. Fu Qinghai walked towards her, his expression as usual, not revealing the slightest bit of displeasure. Do you want me to accompany you? Xia Ling thought for a moment and said, No need, I'll go alone. He's just calmed down and I'm afraid I'll agitate him. Fu Qinghai said, I'd better go with you. It's so late and I'm worried. I'll wait downstairs later. You can go up and meet him. Xia Ling did not refuse. The couple took the elevator and went downstairs. It was not easy for them to hail a taxi. The couple got into the car and Xia Ling said gratefully, Old Fu, thank you. Fu Qinghai grinned. We've been married for so long, what's the point of saying so much? The two rushed to the hospital. Fu Qinghai was waiting in the hospital lobby while Xia Ling took the elevator upstairs alone. When she reached the top floor of the hospital, it was pitch black and nothing could be seen. Xia Ling took out her phone and used the weak light to illuminate the area. She looked around for traces of Xia Jinsheng. Finally, she saw a figure near the railing. She called his name and walked in his direction. When she got closer, she realized that Xia Jinsheng was sitting on the ground with his hands hugging his knees. His head was buried in his legs and he reeked of alcohol. There were a few empty beer cans beside him. Jinsheng. Xia Ling bent down and pushed his shoulder. He remained in that position, motionless. Xia Ling pushed him hard. Jinsheng, wake up. Don't sleep here, you'll get sick. This time, it worked. He moved his body and slowly raised his head. His eyes were hazy as he looked at the woman squatting in front of him. He called out in a muffled voice, Ah Ling. It's me. He suddenly pulled her into his arms and hugged her tightly. Ah Ling, I missed you so much. I missed you so much. He murmured. Don't be like this. Jinsheng, let go of me. Xia Ling was embarrassed. Fortunately, it was night and Fu Qinghai did not follow her upstairs. Otherwise, she would have been embarrassed. Ah Ling, I missed you. He was strangely strong. He hugged her so tightly that she could not break free. Xia Ling was angry and anxious. She said in a heavier tone, Jinsheng, don't be like this. Let go of me. If you don't, I'll be angry. Don't be angry, don't be angry. He murmured and let go of her. He sobbed softly. Ah Ling, don't be angry, Xia Ling sighed and coaxed him like she was coaxing a child. Okay, I'm not angry anymore. Get up quickly. I'll take you back to the ward. She noticed that he was wearing a hospital gown. This time, he didn't mess around and slowly stood up with her help. A drunk person and a person with weak legs made it difficult for the two of them to move. When she helped him to the door of the corridor, Xia Ling was so tired that she was panting. She looked at the stairs in front of her. If he accidentally fell, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, she decided to call Fu Qinghai up to help. When he received Xia Ling's call, Fu Qinghai did not say anything and hurried upstairs to help her. Fu Qinghai helped Xia Jinsheng down the stairs. When they reached the elevator, Xia Ling asked the drunk Xia Jinsheng, Jinsheng, which ward are you in? Xia Jinsheng said in a muffled voice, Ward 703. After the couple sent him back to the ward, they were worried that he would run up to the roof again. After some discussion, Fu Qinghai stayed behind to take care of him while Xia Ling stayed in a hotel near the hospital for the night. Xia Zhensheng slept until 8 in the morning. When he opened his eyes, he stared blankly at the white ceiling. After thinking for a long time, he remembered that he seemed to have fainted on the side of the road yesterday and was sent to the hospital by a kind person. Then he climbed up to the top floor and drank a lot. He gave Xia Ling a call. Because of the hangover, his head still hurt a little. He rubbed his forehead and sat up in bed, still a little confused as to why he was lying on a hospital bed. The door to the ward opened. He instinctively turned his head to look and was instantly stunned. What did he see? Standing at the door was Xia Dong. She ran to his bedside and threw herself into his arms with tears streaming down her face. Dad, Dad, I'm sorry, Xia Zhensheng could not believe his eyes. He mumbled, am I dreaming? Are you really Xia? Xia Dong cried even harder. Dad, it's really me. I've wronged you. Don't leave me and Mom. Early in the morning, her mother had called her and told her that her father had almost jumped off a building to commit suicide. She was so anxious that she rushed to the hospital as fast as she could. On the way to the hospital, she kept blaming herself. If she had taken the initiative to contact her father when she found out the truth and told him her true thoughts, perhaps he would not have tried to commit suicide. Xia Zhensheng's tears streamed down his face. He hugged her tightly in his arms and choked out, Xia, are you willing to forgive me? Xia Dong said with tears streaming down her face, Dad, I've forgiven you a long time ago. I know that it's all Su Murong's fault. You sacrificed a lot to protect Mom and me. Dad, I'm so ashamed. I shouldn't have treated you like that in the past. Are you willing to forgive me for being immature? Xia Zhensheng stroked her hair and whispered, silly girl, Dad has never blamed you, Dad. This affectionate call made Xia Zhensheng's tears fall like rain. He had waited for more than 20 years. Finally, he could be reunited with his daughter. After they had calmed down, Bailey Han and Xia Ling, who had been waiting outside, entered the ward. The knot in his heart for more than 20 years was finally untied. Xia Zhensheng also had the courage to live on. His body was fine and he was soon discharged from the hospital. After he was discharged, the first thing he did was to submit the divorce agreement to Su Murong through his lawyer. As for Su Xingqian, after all, he had raised him for more than 20 years. He still had feelings for him. However, after Su Xingqian found out the truth, he did not want to acknowledge him as his father. He did not force him and packed his belongings. He did not take a single cent from the Su family and moved out of the Su family's villa. The Academy of Fine Arts had once assigned him a staff dormitory. He lived there temporarily and planned to find a more suitable house before moving. After Bailey Han found out about this, he bought a comfortable and well-furnished apartment near the school and asked Xia Dong to send him the key. Without Su Murong's interference, Fu Wei quickly closed his first business deal with unyielding perseverance. He became more and more mature, more and more modest. He gained the approval of the leaders and customers, and his work became more and more smooth. Bailey Han hired the best lawyer and vowed to fight Su Murong to the end. He wanted her to pay for what she had done. After the first trial, Su Murong was convicted of intentional injury, intentional homicide, kidnapping, and several other crimes. She was sentenced to life imprisonment. Su Murong did not agree with the first trial's verdict and filed an appeal. Because the Su Murong's family was very famous in a city, the case of Su Murong attracted widespread attention from the whole society. There was also one person who had been paying attention to the trial's result. He was Shen Ran, Su Murong's agent. When he learned that Su Murong had offended Bailey Han and that she was about to collapse, Shen Ran set off fireworks at the seaside for an hour to celebrate. Before the second trial began, Bailey Han received a strange phone call. Mr. Bailey, my name is Shen Ran. You don't know me, but I know you. I'm very grateful to you for bringing down Su Murong. In order to express my gratitude, I specially want to give you a gift. Shen Ran paused and said, Fenglin Villa is Su Murong's villa in the suburbs. You will find something very interesting there. Bailey Han's eyes moved slightly and he said lightly, why should I believe you? Shen Ran sneered, as long as you go to that place, you will understand. Believe me. Don't go alone, because that place is full of bodyguards and traps. Bailey Han said calmly, condition. He never believed that there was a free lunch in this world. Beauty novel, Hung Cha 866. Chapter 360. Shen Ran chuckled. You're indeed a smart person. My only condition is that Su Murong is sentenced to death. A vicious woman like her shouldn't be allowed to pollute the air anymore. Bailey Han said calmly, deal. Bailey Han was dubious about Shen Ran's words. He wouldn't easily believe a stranger's words. He had sent Ah Bao and Ah Hu to Maple Woods Villa to gather information. Both of them were the best fighters in the Dragon Gang, but he didn't expect them to return with injuries. Ah Bao's arm was injured, and his black suit was stained with blood. Ah Hu's calf was fractured. According to them, there were at least 10 bodyguards in the villa. After they sneaked into the villa, they avoided the bodyguards' line of sight and split up. Ah Bao found the location of the basement and planned to enter to investigate, while Ah Hu searched the rooms above ground. In the end, before Ah Bao could enter the basement, he was discovered by the Tibetan Mastiff guarding the door. The ferocious Tibetan Mastiff pounced on him and scratched his arm. Ah Hu also accidentally triggered the alarm and attracted the bodyguard's attention. During the fight, he fractured his calf. The two of them lowered their heads in shame and said, Young master, we failed to complete the mission. Please punish us. Bailey Han's expression was calm. Although you didn't complete the mission, you managed to gather important information. Go back and recuperate. Thank you, young master. The two of them left after they finished speaking. Bailey Han's slender fingers tapped lightly on the table. He concluded that there must be some unspeakable secret hidden in Maple Woods Villa. Otherwise, Su Murong wouldn't be so cautious. She would go to jail and still let the bodyguards guard the villa. Xia Dong walked into the study with a cup of hot tea. Seeing him deep in thought, she didn't disturb him and gently placed the teacup on the table. He pulled her into his arms and wrapped his arms around her waist. His chin rested on her neck. She rubbed against his chest and said softly, Hubby, what were you thinking about just now? Bailey Han hugged her tightly and said in a low voice, Ah Hu and Abeo came back with some minor injuries. I'm sure that Maple Woods Villa is hiding an unspeakable secret. Xia Dong thought for a moment and said, Ah Hu and Abeo are so powerful, yet they are injured. It seems that Maple Woods Villa is really a dangerous place. Why don't we leave this matter to the police? Bailey Han shook his head. The police don't have a search warrant. They can't break into private houses without permission. Xia Dong laughed, then wouldn't it be a crime for you to break in? He raised his eyebrows and said, Honey, since Su Murong has hidden something in there, I'm sure she won't dare to make a fuss even if it's invaded. As long as no one dies, I have a way to make it public without anyone noticing that I'm the one who did it. Alright, it seems that I can't change your mind. She hooked her arms around his neck and looked at him with sparkling eyes. But you have to promise me that you won't take any risks. Absolutely not. I already have a plan. He lowered his head and pecked her seductive red lips. She licked the corner of his lips playfully. What plan? He bit her earlobe and said a few words softly. Hubby, you're a genius. She laughed softly and kissed him on the lips as a reward. Although Ah Hu and Abeo had failed to gather information, they had drawn a map of the villa's rooms and marked out the locations of some of the hidden mechanisms. Since the bodyguards were guarding the villa and didn't allow anyone to break in, he would find a way to force them out. 2 days later, late at night, Bailey Han sent out 3 elites from the Dragon Gang to carry out a mission. These three people were Old Wu, Crow, and Gang Zi. Crow used special equipment to interfere with the surveillance equipment outside the villa, allowing his companions to successfully sneak into the villa. After that, they set a fire in the villa's kitchen, which triggered the fire alarm and alerted all the bodyguards. While they were trying to put out the fire, the garage and warehouse caught fire again. Another group of people were sent to put out the fire. Now was the time when the security was at its weakest. Crow stayed outside the villa to keep a lookout while the other two entered the basement with tranquilizer guns. The Tibetan Mastiff that had attacked Abeo was put down by more than 10 tranquilizer guns as soon as it got up. After passing by the sturdy Tibetan Mastiff, the two encountered another guard, who was also put down by them with tranquilizer guns. They walked step by step to the deepest part of the basement. This place was like a prison, and the air was filled with an unpleasant smell. There were 5 secret rooms in the corridor, and each room had a thick and heavy iron door. There was a big iron lock on the door, and there was a very small vent above the iron door, which was only big enough to fit a fist in. Through the vent, they saw a scene that they would never forget. Even though they were used to seeing life and death and torture, they were still shocked by the scene in the secret room. After a brief moment of shock, the two immediately took out their cameras and took pictures of what was in the secret room. Old Wu quickly reported the situation to Bailey Han. "Young master, there are 4 men imprisoned in the basement. What should we do now?" Bailey Han frowned slightly. If Old Wu and the others left now, when the bodyguards found out that the secret of the basement had been exposed, they would very likely kill the 4 men in the basement to cover up the crime. The thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately made a decision. "Save them." Old Wu said in a low voice, "There is a large iron lock on the iron door, and we haven't found the key yet. More importantly, the 4 men have lost their ability to move. It will be difficult for us to get out with them." Bailey Han frowned. "When will the fire alarm arrive?" "Before we entered the villa, we already called the fire alarm. They should be here soon. Then we'll follow the original plan and delay until the fire alarm arrives. Then we'll lead them to discover the secret of the secret room." This was Bailey Han's plan. He deliberately set the villa on fire to divert the bodyguards' attention, and the 3 members of the Dragon Gang would take the opportunity to discover the secret of the basement. Then, they would lead the fire alarm to discover the secret and completely separate themselves from the matter. After ending the call, Old Wu said to his companion, "Gangzi, you stay here and protect the 4 of them. I'll go upstairs and check out the situation." Before Old Wu had time to return to the ground, Crow, who had stayed outside as a lookout, had already sent a message through the earpiece communicator. "Old Wu, the fire alarm is here. They're helping to put out the fire." Old Wu frowned slightly and immediately had a plan in mind. He quickly informed Gangzi to remove the anesthetic needles from the Tibetan Mastiff and the guards and withdraw from the secret room. As for himself, he pulled out his pistol and fired a shot into the sky. He shouted, "Murder! Help!" The fire outside was almost extinguished. When the firemen heard the gunshots and cries for help, they divided some of their forces into the villa to investigate. The leader of the group of bodyguards quickly stopped them. "Officer, there's nothing in the villa. You don't have to go in." The captain said, "I clearly heard gunshots and cries for help just now. Something must have happened. Xiao Ding, quickly inform 110. The firemen did not have guns on them. In the event of a shooting incident, they still had to ask the police for help. Save me! Save me!" The cries for help became more and more urgent. The fire chief ignored the bodyguard's attempts to stop him and directly led 2 firemen directly into the villa. The villa was quiet and there was not a single person in sight. The firemen's hearts were in their throats because they did not have guns or bulletproof vests. They had no choice but to carefully investigate the situation. "Captain, there's blood here." A fireman pointed at the blood on the floor. "Follow me." The 3 of them followed the blood and walked down the corridor to the basement. At the entrance of the basement, they saw the unconscious Tibetan Mastiff lying on the ground and a bodyguard in a black suit. There were a few wounds on the bodyguard's fingers and the blood had already coagulated. The blood on the floor disappeared all the way here. It seemed that the blood had flowed from his fingers. Let's go inside and take a look. The captain continued to walk inside with the two firemen. Soon, they found 5 secret rooms. Through the narrow vent, they could clearly see the scene inside the secret room. Xia Dong thanked them sincerely. She could not imagine how much damage it would have done to Hiroshi Kitato if they had taken the skull away by force. The skull had probably become his emotional support during those inhumane days of detention. That night, Bailey Han made a call. The phone rang 3 times before it was picked up. Mr. Bailey, you've received my gift to you. Don't forget your promise. Bailey Han leaned on the sofa and said calmly, I remember very clearly that Su Murong will definitely get what she deserves. Shen Ran chuckled. If that's the case, why are you still looking for me? Didn't you tell me your name because you wanted me to find you? My guess is that you should be the man in the 5th secret room. Shen Ran paused. After a while, his voice was cold. You're right. I was like them, imprisoned in the secret room like a dog. But I was smarter than them. I abandoned my self-esteem and was willing to be her sex slave. I tried my best to please her, so I could walk out of that hell intact. Bailey Han said calmly, I'm not interested in your past, and I won't investigate your identity. I just want to know the situation of the other 4 people. Their names, personal information, and why they were imprisoned by Su Murong. Shen Ran was silent for a moment and said, I can tell you, but you have to promise me that you won't reveal anything about me. I just want to start a new life. Bailey Han slowly spat out 3 words. I promise. Okay, I believe you. Shen Ran said in a deep voice. To put it more emotionally, each of us has a history of blood and tears. The man in the 1st secret room is called Qin Zhao. He is now 37 years old and has been imprisoned for 15 years. He is the first man Su Murong imprisoned. It is said that his eyes are similar to Su Murong's first love. He once tried to escape, but the bodyguards broke all the bones in his body. He was paralyzed on the bed like a living dead. The second man is called Shaolin. He is 35 years old and has been imprisoned for 14 years. Because his nose and mouth are similar to Su Murong's first love, he also tried to escape, but failed. His legs were cut off while he was still alive. The third man is called Li Donghao. He is 30 years old and has been imprisoned for 10 years. His chin is similar to Su Murong's first love. He is very strong and has a strong personality. He refused to be Su Murong's sex slave, so she tried all kinds of ways to humiliate him, train him, and finally turned him into a dog. The fourth man is called Liang Yuan. He is the youngest among us, only 28 years old. He was imprisoned when he was 15 years old. He is different from us, not because he looks like anyone, but because he is too beautiful. He is Su Murong's favorite plaything. Bailey Han's deep black eyes were cold. So, the main reason why Su Murong imprisoned you is because you look like her lover. Shen Ran smiled bleakly. Yes, it's funny, isn't it? Because of a face, we lost the basic right to be human. Last question, what's with the skull in Liang Yuan's hand? Shen Ran sighed. Actually, that's the head of the girl he likes. Bailey Han's pupils suddenly shrank. When he was about 18 years old, Su Murong changed a younger maid to deliver food to us. Although the maid was mute, she was very beautiful. She was about the same age as Ayuan, and they gradually developed feelings for each other. She wanted to help us escape, so she used the excuse of going out to buy things. In fact, She wanted to go to the police station to report to the police, but she was discovered by the bodyguards who were secretly following her. Shinran paused. When he spoke again, his voice was already hoarse. Su Murong killed her. She chopped off her head and threw it into Ayuan's room. It turns out that she already knew that the maid and Ayuan had feelings for each other. She wanted to use this method to take revenge on Ayuan. From then on, Ayuan's mental state became abnormal. Shinran's voice was filled with murderous intent and anger. Su Murong is not a human at all. She's a beast. Bailey Han's eyes were deep and dark. I'll definitely do what I promised you. Su Murong, she deserves to die. Thank you. Other than Hiroshi Kitado, the police had not found out the identities of the other 3 people. Just when their investigation was in a deadlock, Bailey Han organized the information he learned from Shinran into a document and sent it to the police station anonymously. The police knew the names of the 3 people and accurately understood the year they went missing. After more than half a month of investigation, they finally found the family members of the 3 people. When they went missing, they were still young men in their early 20s. Now, they had been tortured until they were emaciated and skinny. They no longer looked as handsome as when they were young. Their family members hugged them and cried bitterly. These families were agitated and joined forces to sue Su Murong. They repeatedly appealed in front of the media and asked for the help of public opinion. They vowed to sentence Su Murong to death. This heartless and illegal detention attracted widespread attention and aroused public anger. Some university students even hung banners outside the Su family's villa to demonstrate. In short, everyone wanted to kill Su Murong. Mika Kito saw his brother being tortured like that with his own eyes. He also resented Su Murong. He ordered his godfather, who had been abducted and sold to the black mines in Africa, to be killed. Then, he applied to visit Su Murong. At this time, Su Murong was no longer as radiant as she used to be. She was like a withered rose, showing signs of old age, but still armed herself with indifference and arrogance. She looked coldly at Mika Kito across the glass and said flatly, "Mika Kito, are you here to laugh at my situation?"